lives, they're stopping some bad guys.
They can be a part of something bigger, or die. Think!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Chilltrumites, a podcast that talks all things Invincible. I'm Matt, and I'm joined by Bashir to talk about the first 3 episodes that dropped last Friday. How's it going, Bash?
Hey, pretty good. I was really excited to see the 3 episodes, and I can't wait for the 4th one this Friday.
Right? I'm like that Dave Chappelle meme, like with the crack reaching out. You got any more of that crack? It was great. Like I'm not gonna overstate it, but yeah, my expectations were met and exceeded with these 3 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a collector of the comics and comics in general, as well as a fan of the show. And one thing I've noticed is that many people, after seeing the episodes on Amazon Prime, are beginning to purchase compendiums, graphic novels, back issues, and there's beginning to be a lot of interest in the comic book from new readers, and that's just something that makes me really happy. And I'm both excited for readers to get into it for the first time, and excited for them to look forward to what's coming next in the show.
Yeah, I did the same thing with the Walking Dead compendiums, and it was a great companion for the show and really fleshed out some characters and showed different perspectives. And the Invincible books will do the same, because there's some things that I don't think are going to make it into the show, and this is a good way to get both, because you have to remember, this is a TV show. This isn't a comic. It's paying homage to a lot of comics, but at the end of the day, it's a TV show, and you have to follow those rules.
It's one thing we've noticed is that it's 3 episodes in, and it's already covered about the first 10 issues. First 10 issues, exactly. I would say it's been like 3 issues an episode or so, and I feel like the pacing's been handled really well. I've been pleasantly surprised with how it's gone. And one thing that really surprised me was I did not expect them to place that much focus on Damien Darkblood, but I'm excited to see it. The pacing in the show's been handled really great. It's been pleasant to see them handle it so well. It's been about 3 issues an episode, and I've been enjoying it. And one thing that's pleasantly surprised me is how much they've focused on Damien Darkblood throughout the last few episodes.
Yeah, I think they improved his design too from the comics, and I kind of forgot about him, but it was cool to see him, and it was nice to see Quadruple D work his magic and really put Cecil to his paces there.
Oh yeah, I mean, one thing I loved about the show is how every casting feels so, it just feels great. One that I've particularly enjoyed is Jason Mantzoukas as Rex. I think he's amazing and really portrays the douchebaggery of that character well.
Oh yeah, he kind of sounds like Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes so far from the first 3 episodes has been his exchange with the Monster Girls. So, looking forward to more.
That was pretty sweet. Yeah, so before we get too into it, we're going to do full spoilers of the first 3 episodes, so definitely check those out before you listen to this, and we'll save the spoiler section for the comic book stuff for the end.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's get on time slides and look back on the first 3 episodes that graced our TV screens. We start with episode 1, It's About Time, and if it works for Crash Bandicoot, why can't it work for Invincible? So it's fantastic. Yeah. We open with 2 random guys standing outside the White House. So one of them was played by John Hamm, which I didn't catch on the first watch.
I did not catch that either. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting scene. The first 2 episodes start out that way, and I think it really plays into the tone of the comic book, so I was all in for it.
Yeah, the nice little dialogue he had about, his stepson and their relationship and trying to get that to work and how proud he is of his stepson overcoming drug addiction and stuff like that. It was just nice and heartfelt, and I wasn't expecting it. It catches you out of left field. When you're looking at an Invincible show, you don't expect to see it, for it to start out this way.
Oh, yeah, no, I think it caught viewers who were going into this content for the first time off guard, so...
I knew damn well that something was happening to the White House within seconds, and of course...
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, this is Invincible. We knew what was coming.
Yeah, and right on cue, the Mauler twins bust out from underground. They had their great exchange about who's the clone, and, that's why you're the clone. They perfectly translated these characters to the screen.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think that whole scene where they break out of prison in the second episode, I believe, the music, the score was amazing. I think Run the Jewels was a very appropriate choice for the Mauler twins, and it worked so well. I love that scene.
Yeah, no, the music has been on point. It's been great in the series and really amps up these action scenes. Good choice of music for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was worried about when it comes to the series is that this was a series that came out in 2003, I believe, the comic book, and I was worried that about how they were going to handle some of the tropes that were appropriate then but aren't so appropriate or wouldn't translate as well now. And pleasantly, I think they've handled them all very well. I think evidently with Amber and William, they've already made some changes to them and right off the bat, and I'm all for it so far. I can't wait to see more of William's character and see how making him gay right out the corner is going to change him as a character, as opposed to, a big part of the comic book was his reveal to Mark. So I will see interesting dynamic between him and Mark now that all that's out in the open.
Yeah, William's still pretty annoying, so they did a good adaptation there. Like, he's not the most fun best friend character for me personally, but, it's cool that they had him be out way earlier in the comics. I think that makes sense in 2021, where it's far more acceptable than it was even 18 years ago. So that's good. And yeah, and Amber's fun too. She's way more aggressive than I remember Amber being in the comic, but I don't remember a ton of Amber in the comic, if I'm going to be honest, anyways.
I feel like, at least in my personal experience, I felt like Amber was a classic sort of damsel in distress where she always needed to be rescued, and there was a whole bunch of dialogue between her and Mark about how he needs to set up certain boundaries because it's important for him to keep her safe, keep his family safe, and make sure that, she was just very, overall, she always needed either saving or was, she had that whole arc about that.
With the boyfriend.
Yeah, with the other abusive boyfriend and everything. So it's like, to see her, being a much more modern woman who can handle her own stuff is refreshing, and I think much more in touch with the current times.
Yeah, I don't see anyone abusing Amber in this version of Amber.
No, I mean, she saved Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so back to the White House attack with the Mauler twins. We have the fantastic and not at all a Justice League allegory. The Guardians of the Globe come in to save the day. So I had to write this down myself because these characters, as we know, are not here for a long time. We have Darkwing, who's a Batman ripoff. So DC with your Black Batman. Kirkman did it 18 years before you guys. We have War Woman, basically Wonder Woman. Green Ghost, the Green Lantern comparison, and Red Rush. He's the Flash. My favorite, Aquarius, the Martian Manhunter, or not the Martian Manhunter, the Aquaman stand-in and Martian Man, who basically is like the most similar to Martian Manhunter, and he just took off the hunter and just kept the name. So close.
All right. Yeah, I like them all. They're all pretty cool. I like that they are very familiar, but they also feel very unique. They're very well designed. And personally, I'm a big fan of Immortal. I don't necessarily agree with his philosophies or any of that. I just really enjoyed his arc throughout the comic. I thought he was a very interesting character. I thought every time he was on screen or on panel, he just felt, compelling. And I'm excited to see him more in the show because I feel like a lot of viewers don't know that he's going to be back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll move that to the spoiler section too, just because
yeah.
I like Immortal. It was cool. The guy looks kind of familiar. I don't know what that's all about, but I think that's pretty cool. You'll find out quickly listening to this podcast. I live for the stupid. So Aquarius just being basically half fish man. He looks like that Family Guy bit where they have the mermaid, but the top half is a fish. That's pretty much what he looks like. And I think he's actually more effective than Aquaman. He's more of an Aqua lad where he can manipulate water and have it shoot out of the ground. I don't think Aquaman can do that.
I think he's an awesome character, and even just seeing him for those few seconds fighting Omni-Man was a treat. And one thing I'm excited for viewers to see in the next few episodes is Invincible number 15, which has one of my favorite covers of the Fish King holding Invincible, which is a whole story. But, he's going to go to that planet with underwater beings. And that reminds me a lot of, those beings remind me a lot of Aquarius. So I'm excited for that episode. And I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy that episode.
Yeah, for sure. At the pace we're going, I mean,
it's going to happen soon. It should be within the next 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So they show that they're a fantastic team, really. They get all their licks and stop their Mauler twins. I think they work together better than the Justice League in the Whedon version, the theatrical cut.
Poor Whedon. Yeah, I mean, screw Whedon. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he's been getting a lot of flack, or at least so. But yeah, no, they work together amazingly. And, now that readers and viewers alike have both seen them die, we look at how Cecil's looking for a new superhero force to take care of Earth, and they look towards the
Teen Team, yeah.
yeah, the teen
Robot.
team to, yeah, exactly, Robot and the gang to basically replace the Guardians of the Globe. And going forward, I think that's going to be awesome to watch as well.
That was really strong. Zachary Quinto's Robot, oh man, like Robot is such a complex. He's not the most complex, but the way he is very unique, and he's really practical. And you saw that in lines like, well, the city's lost. I'm going to call Cecil. We should use the nuclear option right there. Like, he's definitely values saving the most lives that he can. I find that him and Rex Splode almost have like a Kirk and Spock dynamic, and that was very needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could even feel it. You know, there was a scene when they're fighting the Flaxons in the show for the first time, and it was after the Flaxons come back the second time to invade, and they were talking amongst themselves, the team, in the middle of the battle, and they were like, you know, let's just make sure we get through this. And you could hear Robot saying, you know, that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, I mean, he's not, I wouldn't say pessimistic, but he's very realistic, and he's just very odds, probability, following what's a logical kind of guy, and it's going to be interesting to see how that manifests moving forward.
Yeah, and of course Zachary Quinto did play Spock, so those vibes are there, and I think that they definitely meant they didn't do that by mistake.
Oh no, I one thing I just can't praise enough about the show is the voice acting is really top quality. It's just every single character on the show is giving an incredible performance, and it's seamless. Like, there's no transition, it just feels like those are the characters. There they are. They're doing fantastic, and I love it, especially ones that surprised me the most. Yeah, obviously Zachary Quinto, Seth Rogen as Alan the Alien, and Mark Hamill as Art Rosenbaum. That one just is incredible. Like, he completely took on a new personality, and at the same time conveyed art in such an authentic way. I love it.
Mark Hamill's a voice acting god. There's really no other way to put it. Like, he's known for Luke, and you know that will be his legacy, but his Joker portrayal is fantastic, and anytime you get to hear his voice acting, it is a treat.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we're looking at his resume in terms of an actor overall in Hollywood, just looking at, you know, actual movies, he's not the best actor. He's mediocre, all right. You know, he did one of the greatest movies ever made, and you know, it's part of probably arguably the biggest franchise in the world. But in terms of his voice acting, he's probably like a god tier. He's definitely like up there amongst the best of the best. It's just completely different. Yeah, he's just a completely different beast when it comes to voice acting. He really knows how to put all the personality into it, and I still think till this day, whenever I read comic books and I'm seeing a Joker in a comic book, the voice just comes out as Mark Hamill's. That's just how it is.
Yeah, there's no comparison. Like, when you watch a DC animated movie and you hear the Joker and you hear that it's not Mark Hamill, you get a little disappointed.
Just disappointment, yeah, instant disappointment. Seriously.
That's how you know someone made their mark on a role, for sure.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's the same with Kevin Conroy and Batman. Like, you need him to do Batman, otherwise it's just going to be disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. And you said that he hasn't had a ton of like live action roles that have been like super memorable, but I still think he was robbed of that Oscar for his portrayal of Cockknocker in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally forgot about that. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but definitely. If we're gonna count those performances, we might as well throw Ben Affleck's recent performance in the Jay and Silent Bob movie, because that was better than anything he portrayed in the first Justice League theatrical cut.
True. That second the reboot, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, like, that's the only stoner comedy that can almost make me cry, and he actually did a really good job with the scene talking about his daughter there, with played by the iconic Logan Muse there. So yeah, but that's enough Jay and Silent Bob. I'm sure I'll have plenty of time mentioning them every single podcast from now, whether the listeners like it or not.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get the cameo in the show in Invincible. So you never know.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get different cameos in this, actually.
Oh yeah, we've already gotten Saitama. Yeah, so we're gonna get more. I'm 100% certain there's gonna be quite a few cameos. So everyone keep an eye out for those.
I'm ready for the different cameos for sure. I think that's going to be It's cool because like that way you have a reason to still go back and read the comic because you have these cameos and those cameos. You know, in this we have Science in the comics it's Science Dog, in the show it's Seance Dog. So you get two different flavors of.
I just wonder what went into that. Like, what is it? Is it a rights thing? Like, I'm sure there's a reason that it's not Science Dog, but I'm just so curious as to what that reason is. Like, I don't understand. I would love to know.
I think it's just Kirkman having some fun. I think maybe you think Science Dog might be too silly, so we gotta go Doctor Strange. Who knows? But I'm here for it. I mean, last week I left it in the podcast after I found out we were wrong about the Science Dog speculation about him being Seance Dog. You know, even the one thing I had an issue with in the trailer was actually just a conscious decision in the show. So I'm here for Seance Dog.
Yeah, and one thing I really love and appreciate about the show is that it just normalizes, the fact that Mark is a 17-year-old kid and he's just at high school finishing up and, he's reading comic books. And it's like, it's not quite often that you see a show like bring that up, as all these properties that are associated with comic books, but how often it's so rare that you get to see them have an actual throwback to the actual theme of comic book itself. Like, I'm not saying like they don't throw back or mention or homage a certain creator with the comics. They do that often, but I mean to actually address comic books. Like, they show him collecting books. They have Amber asking to borrow one. And, even just a little bit off track, but in a similar tone, on the new Falcon and Winter Soldier episode, there's a scene where they're showing a collage of all the things related to Steve Rogers as Captain America.
And they show the comic cover.
The comic cover. And that's the original Captain America, #1. So it's lovely to see things like that. It's always nice to homage, where it all started. So I love that. I love that
100%. Comics, especially now more than ever, have been the lifeblood of the entertainment industry. I mean, look at all these movies. The MCU, the biggest franchise ever, the biggest movie franchise we may ever see, owes everything to the comics.
Yeah, and it's nice to see them pay respects to that every now and then, whether it's, addressing the creators or just showing little tidbits of comic bookery. Like, I love that, and I really am all for it.
Not just that, but the bravery of showing Mark on the toilet reading the comic book of no less. I mean, no shame, just reading the book. I mean, that's right from the comic. That
is literally the opening scene of the comic book.
That's how we're introduced to our main character, is sitting on the toilet. He's the everyman, he's not above anything, and he's got a seance dog, so it's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I love about it is that, like, I honestly thought, I was worried that because that was the book came out in 2003 that they would remove that aspect of the show, but I'm very glad that they kept it because I feel like it's important to who he is as a character. And moving forward, if we get those interactions. Yeah, exactly. Those comic shop scenes were some of my favorite reading the comics because they're just so funny and they poke little jokes at the industry itself and their practices. But if they put that on the show, I'm all for it too.
Like, what else are they going to do? Are they going to have him go and be like a TV executive and talk about, man, you know what I hate about TV shows? The way they do this. Like, you can't, if he's going to comment on the current media, who knows? But yeah, those comic scenes need to come back at the comic shop.
Yeah, like at least have him ask, the creator why they make so many different covers with the same issue. It's lazy or something. I just love to see that.
It's still relevant 18 years later. The commentary.
Oh yeah, that's why it would be so funny.
Yeah, exactly. So the Guardians of the Globe quickly take care of they attempt to take care of the Mauler twins, but Omni-Man has to come and save them, especially Darkwing. Darkwing was about to die. By the way, every Kirkman pilot so far has had a character trapped under a vehicle. We had Rick under the tank, and now we had Darkwing under what was that like? It was like an armored vehicle or something, or like a bus.
Which is strange because I don't even. I think that was from the books, but yeah, that was an awesome scene, and seeing him, sacrifice himself in the moment for the woman was very heroic. One thing I feel like that scene, which is I feel like many people who watch the show will agree, the intention of that scene was to convey how powerful someone like Omni-Man is, and at the same time how cohesive the unit of the Guardians of the Globe are. It's like a double. It has two purposes, and moving forward, that's really effective because. We're not going to get into the guts of what happens as we're introduced to Mark because it's just your conventional, it's very similar to Marvel introduction where you meet the character. Yep. But towards the end of the episode, let's talk about that. The last 3 minutes, we get some of the most shocking scenes, in a recent animated show, probably.
Yeah, I'd say so. It has an impact for sure. I watched it, I watched the episodes twice, and it hits hard. It's very Kirkman. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, this is a Robert Kirkman property. If you didn't see enough gore yet, and I was wondering, are we gonna do it? Because it was like in a post-credit scene, and as soon as I saw them gathering the Guardians, I was like, oh, we're doing this, aren't we? We're gonna do this right now.
We're doing this like episode 1. Yeah, I think that was the hook for a lot of viewers, was that they were curious to find out what the hell just happened.
Yeah, because he's his hero. He's Mark's hero, as well as basically like the biggest hero on the planet. And most people look up to their fathers, and to find out that, Mark hasn't found this out, but the person teaching you has done something so evil as in killing all the other big heroes on the planet, or the biggest heroes next to him.
Oh yeah, and I mean, he didn't just kill them. He decapitated some of them. He just destroyed them. He deleted them. It was intense.
Yeah, it was gory as hell, and it was just badass. Like, I'm gonna, like, he freaking snaps a war woman's neck, and then she just throws up the blood to add to accentuate the violence. Like, oh my god. Like, and it was really funny watching him against Darkwing, because I'm like, yeah, that's how Batman vs Superman should have gone down if Superman actually wanted to kill him.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious. I don't understand what they thought was going to happen in that situation. I'm just surprised that Equerus was the one that held out the longest. He held his own for for as long as he did.
Yeah, and I like how even the foreshadowing they did with the Martian Man, how he was stretching out to see how far he could stretch, and you can see that little like tumorish looking thing or whatever, which I guess is like his heart, or like, the source of his powers, and that's what Omni-Man was reaching for when he was all wrapped up, and then squeezes that, and then.
Oh yeah, it was such a well curated scene. It just, everything went well together. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that. Didn't expect to see it that early. I think it's like issue like 5 or 6 of the comic. But Kirkman said in an interview with IGN that we're kind of shifting some of the twists around, and I think that is the hook you need in case people are like, oh, it's kind of generic superhero show. This, it's like, okay, we're not messing around, and we got something unique here.
Oh yeah, I mean, the show, I feel like speaks for itself. I'm not worried about how people are going to be handling the reveals, because there's going to be quite a bit. There's going to be so many moments that are going to blow the minds of viewers, and that people are not going to be ready for, despite what you think you've seen before. Trust me. In terms of a superhero genre, you've never seen something like this. So, viewers who recently watched a show like The Boys and were very blown away by the different but more gritty take on the superhero world in that show, they're going to be very big fans and excited about Invincible moving forward.
Yeah, I really don't think that right now Amazon Prime has the market cornered on superhero parodies. I know the Harley Quinn show is pretty good from what I hear, but The Boys is a fantastic parody and on the live action side, and I don't think there's going to be a better one in the animated realm.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, and I'm excited to see Berserker moving forward from Keanu Reeves, but yeah, I think that one's just gonna be pure like crazy fun, whereas just Invincible is a real like deconstruction of the superhero genre, and I think it does so very effectively and very powerfully.
Yeah. So after the cleanup there at the White House, we see Zazie Beetz, his Amber, is being harassed by Todd. And Zazie Beetz it's not a new thing for her to be harassed in a comic book property. I mean, we've seen it in The Joker, so that's one thing that it's almost a guaranteed. But as we said earlier, she doesn't take shit from anybody. And even when Mark stands up for her and gets punched for his troubles, she just like kicks Todd in the balls. And, she doesn't need help.
No, I like this version of Amber. Like she's cool. I'm all for it. I'm really impressed with Zazie's voice performance. It adds a lot of character, to Amber. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it, like, one thing that I guess I wasn't super looking forward to was just predictable, the normal Amber they had from the comics, because I just felt like, in many ways the relationship was a plot device to show how Mark changes as an individual, but it did so very effectively, that specific relationship. But in the comics, this whole new spin on Amber, I'm excited to see the dynamic between her and Mark, and excited to see how that changes. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm all for that. I want to see how they're going to be different because of who she is, how that's going to change their interactions moving forward, and if that means they will, if there's going to be some new spins on the relationship or how that's going to work out. I'm just excited to see all that moving forward.
Speaking of new takes on the relationship, we get to see William, who's now out, talking about how attractive Omni-Man is to his son. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love and I've enjoyed so far about William on the show, is that he's still a bit of an ass in some of the things that he says, but One thing I've noticed is that he feels a lot less like critical and a little bit like, like he's bashing or teasing his friend, and more like supportive in a lot of scenes than he did in the comics.
That is how guy friends talk. We're always, busting balls and kind of doing stuff. And William, they definitely have his snark down for sure.
Yeah, they toned him down and made him a lot more of a supportive friend, and I'm intrigued to see how that's gonna be moving forward, because there were just scenes in the book sometimes where William was just unlikable for no reason. Like, he would just do something stupid for no reason, and you just thought to yourself, like, why is he like this, Whereas in the show, he seems much more like a natural, human being, I guess.
Yeah, I think that in 18 years, Kirkman has time to make certain decisions and think about these choices that he's made. Stuff like, even in The Walking Dead, we saw, maybe I shouldn't have cut off Rick's hand so early, in the run. This could give us a good, a new flavor of the show, and even improve many things going forward.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for that aspect. I'm also excited to see how those changes, reverberate moving down, how they affect the other characters and other people that are present within the story. But most importantly is, like, after Amber beats up Todd for bullying Mark, we get to see just slowly Mark go fight the Flaxons, and it's pretty jarring for Mark, and that's one thing I really enjoyed about this comic and the show itself, and I was worried about when they were going to adapt it, is that I wanted them to really convey the brutality of being a superhero, and they do so in the comic effectively many times. It's a very recurring theme throughout the comic book, as they really show the brutality and the tough decisions, the gray areas that superheroes sometimes have to take in real world situations, if it were, a real world situation. And with Mark there, when he's rescuing the old lady, I don't remember her name, but when he was rescuing the old lady, he got to experience that firsthand. Most of the time you watch a TV show, in the opening episode or two, the superheroes kicking ass. They're not making mistakes. Very often, if they do make a mistake, it's not a taxing mistake. But here, we got Mark, like, stepping into the zone, getting ready to do his thing, and he's already seen people literally get disintegrated.
He saw 338 people die just in, like, their first attack, and then it was Flaxon, Flaxoff. They came back and attacked some other people. So he's seen a lot of deaths. He was able to personally connect to this woman that he was managed to bring to Cecil's medical facility, and then she died. You feel that he does have that connection. He's got heart, and he does care about all these people.
Yeah, you see it just immediately when he approaches the Flaxons too. Like, there's a regard for life, in the sense that he doesn't immediately destroy the Flaxons. He tries to warn them to leave. He tries, resort to more diplomatic, practices, but they're the ones who instigate the fighting. So at the end of the day, you see Mark he's very, like, amateurish in this, and which is very realistic. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head, and he's trying to solve this in the least bloody way as possible. But immediately he's thrown into this literal war, and you see him really get to see the ugliness of war, like, quickly.
Yeah, you see the flashbang sounds when he first lands and stuff like that, indicating his ears ringing, and he's like, holy shit, like, there's
like, he's throwing up, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not just stopping like a robber or something like that. This is actually like a full scale invasion with tech, tech, and we could lose the city here.
No, he's watching people literally die and turn into pools of blood. Like, it's very jarring for him, and I like that they showed that. I like that they didn't just gloss over in the span of a minute, no, but they showed, a good chunk of the episode was dedicated to showing his reaction to that. And, and then later on, he meets Adam Eve for the first time at the war, and he meets Teen Guardians, and then afterwards he gets to talking to her, and she just tells him, like, this is normal. This is what happens to all of us at the first time. We all throw up,
Yeah, and it really makes it realistic. Like, it's like the first scene in The Boys there, where you see Huey and what happens to his girlfriend. It just hits you like a hammer, really. You're just like, oh my God, you can see the reaction, if you haven't seen The Boys. I mean, I don't know. I got mild spoiler, but kind of big spoiler, but you feel the impact of, like, this is what it's like living in a world of superheroes and the threats on the other side of what it can do. It's like, hey, it's not all like, thanks, Superman, you just saved me, everything's fine now. This is a world we still have to live in afterwards.
Yeah, no, this is a book where there are going to be permanent repercussions. I like that. It's realistic. Not every solution is going to be it's not going to have a cookie cutter approach like with superheroes, where it always ends no matter what. Like, oh, someone dies, maybe one person, or someone gets hurt and they save the day. No, you're going to see a very different approach here in Invincible. You're going to see people suffer. And just the first episode, as we discussed earlier, how often do you see a first episode where it sets up a superhero team that's in charge of guarding the globe, and they just get smoked in 2 minutes and 3 minutes at the end? Like, that doesn't happen. So that just gives you an idea of what things are going to be like moving forward. It's got a very Game of Thrones sense to it, in the sense that, no character is safe. Be careful.
Yeah, they set up 2 teams in 2 episodes, and they even mentioned the Fight Force or whatever, who I guess are going to be the joke team. I don't remember them from the comics. They're going to be funny, I think.
Oh, and we're going to get way more characters. So people I feel like there's too many characters or there's not enough. Just wait. There's going to be so many more characters. And there's even some characters who are going to get changes, or who are going to look different, or who already do look different but haven't revealed themselves.
Or new ones like Shrinking Ray. No, Shrinking Ray was in the comic, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so there we go.
Yeah, so we're gonna get actually Shrinking Ray was the one who went inside the dude and made him vomit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I can't remember whether she was or wasn't. I wasn't not sure, but she might be. But I think she was, but later on. But like she wasn't initially part of the trials.
Yeah, I think she showed up later for sure.
Yeah, she showed up later, but here they made her like part of the initial team. But yeah. In terms of characters moving forward, you don't have to worry about not enough characters. You're going to get so many more characters, and they're all going to be great, both villains and heroes.
That's what I love about this, is you have great villains that are badass, and you're like, oh, how is so-and-so going to beat them? And strong villains make for stronger heroes. That's something that I feel like gets left by the wayside a lot of times. That's definitely not a problem with this show.
No, there's going to be plenty of villains. People who are fans of good, classic, just awesome villains, they're going to love this, because there's going to be a lot of awesome villains.
Yeah, so we see Mark go to work at Burger Mart. We actually don't see him work. I don't think we actually seen him inside the restaurant yet, but he goes to take out the trash. This would have been a perfect time for Beavis and Butthead to show up if we're going to do a cameo there, but I digress. Mark throws out the trash. First bag goes in normally, and the other one he just throws off, and it goes it goes super far, and he's like, oh baby, I got my powers now.
Yeah, that scene I feel like is just, it's an iconic scene that's going to be remembered for a while. And I like the realism in the scene where, like, when he's opening the trash, it just, like, falls down shut the first time. And just everyone's had that happen to them.
That trash bag has a more interesting story arc than some characters in some major franchises.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the awesome thing when you get a great creator like Robert Kirkman crafting a story.
Yeah, you see continuity in ways you don't expect. Like, oh, that's cool. That's that from, issue 1 showing up in issue 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't even wait. Just the first storyline, which I feel like we got a lot sooner in the comics, and I don't know if we'll get here, but I hope we do, is just the whole story with the Rhiannon and D.A. What's his name?
D.A. Sinclair, yeah.
D.A. Sinclair, yeah, who was kidnapping all the high school kids and turning them into Rhiannon. Like, I'm hoping we get that storyline, at least, like, to introduce the Rhiannon, because I think that's going to be, like, a really cool initial storyline to kick the show off into slowly, getting more intense into other storylines.
Yeah, I'll probably move that to the spoilers and stuff. But yeah, I agree. I like when after Mark realizes he has his powers, he goes home and has dinner with the folks. And Omni-Man is like, oh yeah, I was in Tokyo. We fought a dragon, a real life dragon or whatever. And Debbie's like, oh, dragon, nice. Like, she's over it. She's probably heard like 1,000 stories of this at the dinner table.
Oh yeah, and I can't imagine. And that's one thing like you notice with her approach to the family is that, Mark's all concerned about Nolan's lack of a presence during the time he goes, into the portal and at the end of the second episode. But Debbie's just like, oh, it's okay. I'm pretty sure it's happened before. He'll just be back in time, for this or that or that. So it's like you can tell there's some development, and it gives you an idea of what it's like to be a member of that family.
Yeah, Nolan, as far as Debbie's concerned, Nolan is invincible as well. Like, anything that happens, she's like, oh yeah, he'll be home tonight, or he'll be home eventually. Like, she feels, she has no doubt that he's impenetrable basically. So it's kind of cool. And if something does happen to him, it's going to hit her even harder, thinking you feel pain the most when you think it's never going to happen, when it hits you out of the blue.
Yeah, exactly.
So Nolan finds out that Mark tells his parents that he thinks he has powers, and he thinks he got his powers. And we see Omni-Man go, are you sure? And I really like that, especially if you read the book that way. Like, are you sure? Because that could be a big change.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'm excited to see, how they handle certain big changes moving forward. I want to see if... I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to let that one, hang in the air. But yeah, there's a lot of big reveals in the story, and I'm very excited to see how they handle some of them, because I think the audience is going to have their mind blown.
Yeah, so we get a scene showing young Mark and Nolan, and we get the Viltrumite backstory talking about how the Viltrumites are on a planet similar to Earth, and they have super speed, and they can fly, and they're pretty strong, and that they go to different planets and help improve them. And we see them help a few alien species. One of them looked like the aliens from Tech Jacket. The green
I
ones.
noticed that too. Yeah.
So that's cool. I like those guys, and they would need help from someone else because in that comic, they grew so smart over time that eventually their bodies grew weaker. So if they get EMP'd or something, they need someone strong to help out. So that makes sense, and it's cool to see the little tie-in.
Yeah, I really hope. I mean, they did so in the comics, but I really, really hope that we get to see Tech Jack in the TV show. I think he's just an awesome character that, you know, you never know. Maybe people will see him and they'll want to see more of him. But yeah, he's just a cool character that I wish we saw more in the Invincible series.
So after this talk with Omni-Man, after we see the flashback of Nolan with the Viltrumite story, we see Mark lying in his bed, and then he sneaks out through the window and tries to fly. Now he's like, I got super strength, man. I may as well start to fly. And he does. He takes off, and it's like a cool sequence where he's flying through the air, and he's reckless. He has no idea how to control himself, and he almost flies into a plane, and he definitely doesn't know how to land.
Yeah, and then, you know, the next morning, the first thing you see is him practicing with his dad, you know, how to fly, and he's still a wreck. And I appreciated that, you know, a lot when I first read the comic book, and I appreciate it now even because I just think it's just very wholesome, realistic take on, you know, what it's like to be a superhero. Like, obviously, no one's gonna get it right off the bat, but yeah, and they show you that Mark is no exception. Even though he's a great, talented, smart, and athletic kid, there's a learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. And that learning curve includes learning how to pee your pants on purpose.
I mean, there's gonna be so much more that happens that, you know, that he's gonna learn. There's gonna be so much, it's just so much more overwhelming. So I think people are in for a ride, but it's cool to see him, you know, put some of it to use right away. And one thing I love, and I love this again in the comics, and I loved it even more in the show, is that I'm so glad they showed him wearing that super shitty homemade DIY costume, because I love that. I love that scene so much. It's so realistic, and it even, and I know Invincible came out before Spider-Verse and Spider-Man, but it even reminded me of those movies recently, because in Spider-Man we got Tom Holland wearing that, you know, crappy homemade suit, and it's just so funny. And that's an aspect I really liked about Invincible, was that they showed that too. And it's a really refreshing transition when he finally gets his quote-unquote iconic suit in the
first
show.
episode too. Boom,
Yeah.
45 minutes, we got the suit.
Yep, exactly. So that was something I forgot to mention that I really loved.
Yeah, there's some recurring jokes they're definitely getting the axe, but it'd be cool if, when Mark reaches full speed, he pisses himself at the same time. I think that would be a nice little cherry on top of this Omni-Man tutelage. But no, that was fun. It's really cool to see, but especially with knowing what's in the episode, it's at the end, it's nice to see Omni-Man being this great teacher and this great role model, where it's okay, he's teaching his son how to be the best he can be. But what does that mean after we've seen him kill everybody? Is he somebody? A lot of people online think that, is he being mind controlled or what? I don't know, but whatever it isn't good.
No, and I like that they show a lot of, you know, red herrings to that by showing you little clips of him being an asshole, different scenes. Like the first one is when he fights Mark, they're practicing, and he tells Mark to hit him, and Mark hits him really hard because Nolan's arrogant and he thinks he won't get hit, but he does. And then all of a sudden you see Nolan just, you know, ramp up and get ready to just destroy Mark, and then Debbie and Cecil interrupt the scene and he just stops. Another one is, you know, when he's talking to the nurse after he leaves the hospital, he really just yells at her to give him the costume right away, you know, just commanding her. And then even another scene there's other scenes with Damien Darkblood where he's just extremely dismissive, and I found everyone to be dismissive and disrespectful of Darkblood. So they really give you little snippets into Nolan's transition, you know what I mean? Showing you that even his wife and his family notices his little, you know, bouts of anger here and there.
Yeah, you even see some anger in Mark at that moment in the fight with the Flaxons, where he goes full rage mode and almost kills somebody right away. So you can see that, you know, like father, like son, rage is definitely a factor here.
Yeah, and they're going to expand more on that in future episodes, you know. That's not just something... You know, this show is great in the sense that it doesn't end the comic. It doesn't just do these things where it'll, you know, tease you with something and then never address it again. No, they're going to dive deeply into why things like that happen, and, you know, there's reasons.
Yeah, I like when they're learning how to fly, and Omni-Man says that you can fly from any direction, so you can create your own leverage. I think that adds a cool dynamic to the fights.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the book is that's the one thing that I love about the book. It's very clever, and you're gonna see a lot of that on the shows. That the explanations, the world building, it's all very cleverly done. It's not one of the situations where they assume the viewer or the reader is an idiot. No, they assume like you're smart. They want to give you an intelligent, well crafted story.
Yeah, exactly. So back at school, we see Todd tries to kick Mark's ass again at school, as the bully does in these all these superhero shows, and he beats the shit out of Mark. And Mark's basically got his powers now. He doesn't beat the shit out of him, but he does like punch the hell out of him. But Mark takes it because he's got his powers now, and then he just says he needs something to punch. I like that line because there's a lot of bullies out there that are just angry and just want to get out their aggression, and they don't care who they take it out on.
Yeah, it just gives me a very Flash Thompson vibes from Spider-Man 1, Joe Manganiello, punching Toby. It's a very similar scene.
Yeah, exactly. And after that, we see Mark go on his first mission with his little bandito costume or whatever, the DIY costume. And unfortunately, his first mission's against Titan, who is a tough-ass motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I love about the show is that they show you many situations where Mark's just in over his head, and that's pretty funny.
Yeah, Titan voiced by Marshala Ali, which is a cool pick. And I like Titan. I hope he gets to say his catchphrase in this because it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see more of Titan moving forward because I think he's also another cool character that we should be seeing more of soon.
Yeah, he's definitely cool. And he's kind of like the Thing if you could like punch the rocks off of him, like he gets his shell. It's cool.
Yeah, they really didn't show much about him, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But let's just say there's a lot more to him than what they've shown on the surface in the first episode or the second episode.
Yeah, Titan and Mark get into it, and then Omni-Man comes and talks to Mark, and Mark says he took care of it. He's like, well, it's pretty sloppy. I think he skipped a few steps, and I like that. It's like, well, he kind of jumped the gun. Mark gets emotional and gets angry and goes like, oh, hit me. I want to show you I'm strong and stuff like that. And he really, he wants to show Omni-Man that, hey, I'm your son. I can take a hit.
Yeah, and then that scene was surprising because I thought Omni-Man would react differently, but instead he reacts in a very wholesome way, and I thought that was slightly different from the comics to where I feel like he would have reacted a little bit differently, but I guess a big part of that is that Mark still doesn't know about what happened with the Guardians and what his true intentions are.
Yeah, so after that, Omni-Man, he takes him to the tailor shop, and we get to meet Art Rosenbaum, played by the, illustrious Mark Hamill that we mentioned before.
Yeah, I love that scene. I knew it was coming, and the only change I remember there was in the comic book, it's the principal who inspires Mark to come up with the name Invincible for his costume by having a discussion with him at school. But I felt like for the TV show, it was very fitting and appropriate to have Art Rosenbaum, help him. Inspire him for the costume choice and the name choice and design. So I thought that was a refreshing change. I thought it was cool.
Wasn't Nolan who said you're invincible, and that's what gives him the invincible?
Oh, right. It was Nolan. Yeah, so it was refreshing to have Nolan inspire him because it just felt like closer to home coming from his dad. But yeah, in the comics, that one was different. And I'm actually glad because in the comics, it might have felt more organic, but here it feels more personal. They really expand on that connection between him and his dad.
I still think you should have gone with Kid Omni-Man, right? I mean, that's obviously the good name.
Oh, thank God. There's more on that later on.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I don't know. It'd be weird if they did go with a name like that, but I digress. It's funny in the scene, Mark tries on this suit that's not quite the right one, and he said it was pretty loud, and it was like orange and yellow. And it's kind of funny because we see the loudest character in the show has a red and yellow suit there, and Rex explodes. So it's kind of foreshadowing to him a little bit.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty good scene. A lot of the interactions between Mark and Art are going to be just really cool, down-to-earth moments that I can't wait for.
Yeah, we get the scene that we've seen in trailers where Mark and Nolan are playing baseball, or at least they're throwing a baseball around, which is nice, playing catch. Like, it's the father-son activity that you see a lot of times in movies and TV shows. Bit of a trope, but this takes it to a new level with throwing the ball around the earth and catching it.
Oh yeah, and then for those people who are worried about tropes, I'll just say, sit tight. It's the first 3 or 4 episodes or the first 10 or 12 issues in the comic that had, some tropes, and after that they just go full deep dive into Invincible craziness, and it gets awesome. It gets even more awesome. Yeah, so.
We'll be going beyond the troposphere pretty soon. It's going to be good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime that you see like a mountain, like they throw the rock and they throw the baseball and it goes past a mountain and stuff like that, I just think of firepower. I don't think that's. I mean, that was in the comic, but there's also the mountain that they have as the base, so it's nice little. Maybe not on purpose, but definitely makes me think of firepower.
Yeah, I mean, overall, this episode, I just enjoyed it because it already felt like things were progressing quickly. A lot of like shows tend to linger on the beginning and focus a bit too much on the origin, but this show, and I gotta say this again, we're gonna praise the pacing. Just the pacing was handled so well. You know what I mean? It's just done so organically. Everything's happening well. Like he's meeting with Adam Eve, their development as friends. It's just great. I'm all for it.
We're going at the pace of Red Rush right now. Like we're not wasting any time. We're killing it, and I thought I'm liking it because if you need to get someone hooked on it, like if you're trying to convince someone to watch the show, definitely the post credits of this episode is definitely gonna help grease someone's palms into getting into this. It makes me thankful that I'm not gonna have to wait 4 or 5 years to see some characters that I've been waiting to see on screen.
It's funny because I'm excited for all the characters. Like I just think they're all gonna translate so well onto screen, and I think a lot of people are really gonna enjoy them. So I just can't wait. Even if it's a little bit quick, I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. We get a really cool fight scene with some nice CGI town. It doesn't look like perfect, but I think it fits. I kind of like it, and it goes along with the Cage the Elephant song. Amazon Prime, I got to give it up. It's like a podcaster's dream with the ability to pause and see all the actors and the character names. But not just that, they go a step further and even show you the song that's playing, that's fantastic. That's above and beyond. I'm not huge on their operating system or the layout of the app necessarily, but this is definitely the thing that they have above all the other streaming services.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Amazon's been doing a great job with the show. And one thing I really like that I've noticed is that the episodes all start out, someone's going to say Invincible at a random point, and then they just put the Invincible logo on the title. And each episode, it's been getting a little bit bloodier.
That's a nice touch. People like IGN might get pissed off about there being a lot of blood in this colorful cartoon, but Kirkman and blood and gore are basically synonymous with one another, and this show has it, and you feel it, though. You can't just have blood and gore for the sake of it. They have a lot of it, but it shows the stakes, and when it happens to characters we care about, it's burned into your mind and sticks with you.
There's a difference between having, like, distasteful, just useless, and, like, excessive blood and gore for no effect. But everything in Invincible is done with full effect, and it's done tastefully. It's not like stupid. It's all epic.
For sure. So later on, we get Kill Cannon introduced before Adam Eve, which is interesting.
I was not expecting that, to say the least. I didn't know that they would do that quickly, but I guess they just wanted to show Mark tackling, someone who isn't just a nameless crook, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, Kill Cannon, he's decent, and this is nearing the end of the episode. So yeah, Mark tussles with Kill Cannon, and then we get the credits and the format. You mentioned the Invincible card. It's interesting because we waited till like basically the end of the episode to get the Invincible title card. I don't see many shows doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It's different for sure, but I thought it worked well. It had me on my toes.
Yeah, we get all the Guardians called into action in the mid-credit scene, I guess. Basically, it's post-credits. We get to see Red Rush talking to his girlfriend. I think her name is Olga. Like these little touches that Kirkman does of like, if you're a speedster, just talking to someone nonstop or whatever, like just having a normal conversation would probably bore the crap out of you when you're used to like running to China in 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's another thing I like about the show is that it doesn't assume the reader like is an idiot, but it attempts to like show them, different perspectives from the superhero's perspective. Even though people can't be superheroes, but it attempts to really show you, what it's like to be a superhero and to try to live a normal life.
Yeah, like an 8-year-old that breaks a window, it's grounded. It's great. So we get to see the Guardians dealing with their own stuff before they get called in. We get to see Ross Marquand face off against each other as he's voicing both Biplane and Immortal, which is cool. Ross Marquand, of course, is in The Walking Dead. He played Red Skull in Infinity War, so he's been in 3 great comic properties so far. If I had to pick 3 to be in, it'd be hard to top those 3, which is pretty cool for him. find ourselves at the Guardians of the Globe's compound, and everyone shows up, and no one knows who called who until we see someone flying at them, and it turns out to be Omni-Man in the heel turn of the century.
That scene was, I think, for myself and for a lot of viewers, what's going to hook them into seeing the next episode, if not immediately, because it was so shocking and intense.
Mm-hmm. It was awesome. It's like if you got introduced to Superman in issue 1 and then he kills everyone else at the end of it. It was shocking and incredibly gory, and in true Kirkman fashion, we get to see Red Rush's head get blown up in his hands, which I think was like the goriest part of that, other than Darkwing getting smashed off the ground. Like, that was pretty gory. The whole thing was gory. We're really picking at it, but it was intense, and it needs to be intense to destroy your whole worldview of what we thought was a happy-go-lucky universe with, a kid with his dad being Superman to be just like him, and now we're left wondering, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I thought it was fantastic, and my favorite part of the whole thing was when he, straight chopped off Immortal's head. Like, his hand was literally straight. He just, chopped it off. Yeah, that was a great scene. I really enjoyed that. And, the whole sequence was fantastic, and I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers are going to be shocked when they watch it for the first time. And even I watched it 2 times, and I still think it's insane. I just love it. So This is including the fact that we both read it. So
we saw it coming, but it's still shocking to see in motion and to see everybody get brutally screwed up. I think if it wasn't shocking, then you might have to get checked out, because it was brutally gory and stuff like that. Great way to introduce you to this bloody universe, right? They don't even give you the title card until the last 7 minutes of the episode, because we're really getting down to business here. This is what Invincible is all about: is conflict and just bloody battles based on changing your views on these characters. So it's good.
Yeah, and that's why I think people are gonna be excited for more of moving forward, is more of these twists and turns, which, believe me, in Invincible there are going to be a lot of twists and turns, and it's fantastic. Every single one of them is going to be handled well, and it's going to be exciting. So for viewers out there whose minds were blown by this scene, you have a lot more coming for you. Stay in.
Yeah, so that's how we end episode 2, and they released 3, so we move on to episode 2, Here Comes Nothing, or Here Goes Nothing, episode 2, Here Goes Nothing. We open in, we see the Union Jack flag, and we see the character from the first episode, John Hamm, with his stepson Matt. They finally go on that trip to England.
I feel like opening up, at least for me as well, opening up with that scene was a surprising subversion. I was expecting to start with Mark right off the bat, so to continue the second episode, but that was a sweet little treat, and I think it delighted the viewers.
The dialogue was pretty insightful, where John Hamm's character says, when they're talking about, it's the Parliament building that they're at?
Yeah. I think it's the White House, or is it the Parliament?
No, it's in the UK. I think it's the Parliament building. Either
UK.
way.
Yeah.
They say, he says it's not about, they're admiring just how massive it is and how grandiose it is, and John Hamm's character says it's not about rooms, it's about power. That building has one purpose: for the Queen to say, "You are my subjects." That Queen may look like a nice lady, but she comes from a long line of tyrants, which is interesting. As the story unfolds, you can see what it is to continue a long line of tyrants, and following a line, maybe being the first one to stand up against a tyrant, and how tough that is for a person to do.
Yeah, in a lot of ways that foreshadows things that are to come. It was an interesting way to slide it in there, you know what I mean, for those more astute viewers who are with a keen eye.
Yeah, and we're quickly interrupted by an incoming garbage bag that we saw from last episode, and there's I guess it's sauce everywhere, but at first I thought it was blood. I was like, oh shit, did Mark already kill his first person here?
Oh yeah, that's the funny part. No, my initial reaction was the same. I thought it was blood. I thought it was about to, there was about to be an invasion of sorts, but then it just turned out to be ketchup, I believe.
Yeah, probably ketchup or some kind of sauce or whatever. And then I love the cutaway there from the discarded lunch meats to the corpse of all the Guardians of the Globe members. That's a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a sequence shift. But, that whole scene, it's quite a way to open an episode, to start out with such an intense scene, which results in, something, hilarious or comedic, and then it shifts into the taking off right where we ended last episode. It's quite a scene, You see the remains of all the Guardians, and it's pretty visceral. They don't hold back.
Yeah, exactly. They don't. Even the crew there are freaked out. We see Cecil's guys come in. We're introduced to Cecil in the scene, but we see his guys come in first, and they've got cool cloaking tech that they didn't have in the comics. So that's gonna be cool to see what other advancements they have.
Yeah, and I mean their reaction would be believable. You know, a lot of them were vomiting their guts out, and just they couldn't really handle the scene, and which makes sense because some of the people there. So like I remember there was a second where when they were walking in, they stepped on someone's eyeball and just squished it. And just like that just gives you an idea of what kind of scene they're walking into.
Yeah, and these guys they must have seen some stuff in their day if they're doing these missions on a regular basis. And for this to be the thing that's getting them all throwing up and freaked out, and, rightfully so. Any human, if you see this, when it's drawn and it's animated, it's gory. But to see this in real life, to see all these creatures, and you see even like Martian Man with organs you don't even recognize, like spilled across the floor, it's got to be definitely traumatizing.
In another sense, it's the heroes who they've come to rely on and who they believe are in many ways invincible, pun intended. These heroes that they've come to rely on, and they are much stronger than they are if they've handled like world-ending catastrophes. To see them in such a condition must be like traumatizing.
Exactly, unless it's their first day, which I highly doubt.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we see Donald and Cecil for the first time. Donald is fantastic. He has that derpy look all the time, every time you look at him. And Cecil, not enough can be said about the greatness of Cecil.
I hope they get to show more of Cecil, and especially behind the scenes, because so far most of what they've shown of Cecil is just his interactions with the family and him reassuring certain members of the family or helping out. But I hope they go more into his personal character and his background, which I'm sure they will, but I hope they do it sooner rather than later, so the audience begins to get an idea of who Cecil is.
Exactly. And so we then cut to Debbie waking up in an empty bed with no Omni-Man in sight.
You just showcases Debbie going through the motions and gives you an idea of what her life is like, being married to a superhero that's the superhero like Omni-Man. It just shows you that even though she's married to someone who's also pretty much impervious, she does have those human moments where she wakes up and she wonders where her husband is.
Yeah, even being so sure that Omni-Man's basically omnipotent, you still kind of worry sometimes, like, is this going to be the day?
And it turns out, unfortunately, that it is one of those days because she's contacted by Cecil to come into the headquarters and to, they go to the medical facility and they find Omni-Man. And obviously viewers know that while they're aware of what Omni-Man did, the government and Cecil and and Omni-Man's family are not aware. So it just seems like Omni-Man was one of the only the only survivor. So yeah, we go there where they're just recovering at the medical facility.
And Cecil is shades of gray, the character, where he wants to be absolutely sure, I'm jumping ahead a bit, but as investigations heat up, he wants to be absolutely sure that Omni-Man is actually, guilty of this if he is. And even if he is, how do you approach that? If this omnipotent figure did something evil, you can't accuse him of it. What's he going to do? You have to play it cool and figure out your best move.
That's the thing with Cecil, is that he's a very a gray area kind of person. So I'm pretty sure his priority right now is to ensure his recovery, to find out who committed the murders because he doesn't know who it was, and also to reinstate Omni-Man, because moving forward just a few minutes we see that there's a Flaxon invasion and Cecil's there to say that they need someone out there, that there's no heroes because the Guardians of the Globe died last episode. So this provides an opportunity for another hero.
So we get the title scene, and we get the title card after Omni-Man and the Graysons arrive at the medical facility. We see there's a little bit of blood there. It's going to get bloodier. By the end of the season, it's going to be bloody, but I picture by the end of the series, they're just going to have to have the text be shining through like a pure red picture, basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could talk about how layered or how that foreshadowing was meant, but even I feel like it works both ways, both implicitly and explicitly. And implicitly in the sense that, each episode, the title sequence gets a little bit bloodier, but, explicitly in the sense that literally just 1 or 2 minutes later, Mark is literally thrown into a war zone with the Flaxons because he agrees to take the mission on right after they see that his dad is unable to.
I love the sequences when we have Mark in the superhero costume. The music choices have been fantastic in this series. This time the song is Tom Tom by the band Holy Fuck. And we can say Holy Fuck in this podcast. They say it in the show. We're gonna go by what the podcast says, basically. If you're dropping, or what the show says. If you're dropping F-bombs, of course, if you're gonna watch the show, you can hear some F-bombs on your daily stroll listening to the podcast.
Holy shit, like we're not talking about your typical superhero comes to save the day. We're talking, Invincible just lands and is kind of, disoriented because immediately just things are out of control. And I'm not just talking people dying, which they are, but I'm talking like blood everywhere, like blood literally on Mark, like he gets blood on him and he's disoriented from the whole thing and he's not sure how to navigate this area because he's not used to seeing this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't think his Seance Dog comics got this gory. He has no prep for this.
Oh, no. Even if we were to make the argument the comics could be more mature, like he's 17 at this point of the show and series, so it's not like he's been reading the goriest comics.
Even if he was, I mean, just seeing that happen, you get the earring, as I mentioned earlier, and he sees people eviscerated in front of him so quickly that you can't even tell what parts are flying across the screen.
A lot of his initial moments in the battle are purely impulsive. Like, we just see him react because he's just so overwhelmed with what's going on that he doesn't really know how to think it through.
Yeah, Mark's actually about to get blown to Kingdom Come when Adam Eve puts up a barrier and we get her introduced into the Invincible universe.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic introduction. It's a great way to showcase this interesting, new, amazing hero with these wonderful powers, while at the same time, she just shows up in the most pivotal of moments. It just seems, perfect for who she is.
And Eve's not alone. She's joined by the team made up of Adam Eve, Duplicate, Robot, and the Lovable or Explode.
I really enjoyed this next sequence because, typically viewers would come into this thinking like, okay, here we are, like the day is saved. But like, that's not really what happens, as, we know what, moving on.
Well, there's many casualties for sure, and in this whole debacle, it's a full scale invasion pretty much, and 338 lives are lost just in this one first appearance by the Flaxons.
I mean, Mark had to lose his temper and channel into his inner Chilltrumite to, basically get the power to end that battle because it wasn't going in their favor. Even with the team showing up, they were beginning to lose. And moving on from the battle, we see that in many ways it might have been a momentary win, but it was a spiritual and emotional loss because Mark is faced with the guilt of having to deal with a victim from the battle for the first time.
Yeah, there's the elderly lady that he tries to save there. He does succeed in saving her at the moment, but as we see later on, he follows her to the GDA's medical facilities, and unfortunately she doesn't make it. So we get this nice little mini arc of Mark trying to do his best and failing, and sometimes that failure can teach you the most important lessons.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to teach him about the realities of being a superhero. And the thing is, it's not like a lot of shows, they gloss over this kind of thing or they just really show it briefly. But, following the encounter after he takes the lady to the medical facility in the hopes of trying to save her, you see him going to school and he's pretty beat, to the point where even his friends and William notice that he's just not happy because, it's hard to deal with something like that.
Yeah, on top of the Flaxon's attack, he's not used to seeing his dad injured, so he even tells William, oh, my dad's been hurt. My dad's in the hospital. He's in a coma. And William is like, oh, my God, that's terrible. So you can see that's definitely weighing on Mark.
And, moving forward, he gets to talk to Eve again at school for the first time, and we get a brief introduction where he, tells her that he's invincible.
Yeah, I like the line later on where... this is afterwards when Eve and Mark are talking, and she says, well, you don't really, psychologists say or whatever, that you don't really, if you don't expect to see a superhero in your school, you won't find one. So that's why he never saw her, or they never noticed each other.
At the same time, I don't even think that he's even really ever thought about. It's hard to, associate someone who from high school with that kind of, you know what I mean? Like
that realm, yeah.
Yeah, like if you don't really know who they are, but afterwards it just made sense because he's been, one thing they set up is that he's been admiring Eve in the comics. So at least in the comics there was always that he knew how she looked because he's always been a fan.
I think does, though, because he follows them on Instagram, right? So I think he does know of them, but I guess he doesn't know when he sees the girl that looks exactly the same, basically, just not in the pink getup.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed a lot more during the Flaxon invasion is like the Corey Walker artwork. You're right. There is quite a bit more than inspiration in some of the line work for sure.
Yeah, and Adam Eve looks a lot like those in 16 or so 20 issues where they were doing Invincible. And the funny thing is that moving forward after the reveal, she actually helps him deal with his PTSD from the fight, or his trauma from the fight, because she lets him know that he wasn't like the only one who went through that struggle. And it humanizes both of them. It shows you that even in this, in this story, in this series full of superheroes, a lot of them have, human sentiments where they find it difficult to process these deaths, even though they are superpowered beings.
Just finding someone that you can relate to and talking about it definitely helps, and knowing that you're not alone definitely is beneficial for young Mark Grayson trying to find his way in the superhero world.
Yeah, I feel like it really helps him cement himself into being the kind of hero he wants to be, while at the same time giving him that, initial boost, because having someone to talk to. And, because I feel like he can't really talk to his dad about that kind of stuff because he reacts differently, as we will see later on.
Yeah, just back to the Flaxon invasion, we get a nice taste of how the team operates and who's who. Immediately you can tell Robot, being the robot, is the calculating leader there, and he can really decipher the best way to approach any situation. And Rex is the opposite, where he doesn't really calculate anything. He's shoot first, ask questions later, very Han Solo-y.
That's a great segue moving forward, because after they have their conversation, we move forward to a scene where Cecil and the crew are investigating the crime scene, and we see a character who appears a lot more in the show than I feel like he did in the comics. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Damien Darkblood. I feel like his introduction into the series also, it showcases the tonal shift from the comic book to the series, to the TV series, because in the comic book initially it started out as very similar to Peter Parker, Spider-Man-esque kind of series, whereas in this TV show it seems like it's more of a whodunit in the first 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. It very, very much so, and he definitely, Damien Darkblood talks to way more people than I remember him talking to in the comic.
I honestly can't say that I haven't enjoyed Damien Darkblood's inclusion, because he's a pretty cool character. And yeah, I've just enjoyed this introduction to him. I felt like it was compelling. It was a very good way to introduce him, and it just made sense to his character. So I think fans and viewers alike will enjoy his creepy little moments in the show.
Yeah, and Mr. Krabs there, Clancy Brown, adds the perfect amount of gravitas with that voice of his.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It just really adds to the tone and the mood of the show. And moving forward, we're going to see a little bit more of him, because he's a cool character. And even in the comics, like I said, he didn't make that many appearances, but whenever he did appear, he was very compelling.
I'm surprised Omni-Man just doesn't try and snap his neck. Like, why didn't Omni-Man just fly at him later on? Like, whenever he approached him, I think it was in episode 2.
There are reasons, as we'll see later on, but I'm pretty sure in the moment, Omni-Man didn't want to arouse more suspicion to himself.
I'd like to see like Omni-Man go to hell with him, and that just like kills everyone in hell like the Flaxon world. That'd be a cool montage. But
oh yeah, that's a little. We'll get that later on. Yeah, we'll get something like that. Moving forward from this scene, we get in one of my favorite scenes in the comics. I guess I enjoyed it too in the series. It was just a little different, but we get Mark meeting Amber again, but this time she's trying to gauge her interest in him and whether he's single or not, because we see them talking briefly, but then she sees him leave with Adam Eve, so she's a little bit discouraged.
It's already like the romantic dynamics between, it's like we got a love triangle already, and there's already been a lot of stuff happening just in the first 3 episodes when we have a lot of stuff going on in the first place. But yeah, this love triangle is very much there, and you can see the hurt in poor Amber there as he flies off with Eve.
I feel for Amber, because based on their initial conversation in the first episode, no one can blame her for thinking what she was thinking. Wrong time, wrong place makes it look like Mark is with Eve when in reality he's not.
One thing I forgot to mention when those Flaxons were fighting, something happens and they just start to decay quickly and they run back into the portal. We learn later what happens, but as they're decaying, there's their leader who gets shot in the eye and is obviously missing the eye. And as they're running the portal, he takes the time to like look back and like shake his fist. And luckily, he didn't age out and die there as he runs in the portal.
That's also another foreshadowing scene because they're trying to right after the scene where. A few scenes later in this episode, we're gonna get the Flaxons coming back to Earth, and we're gonna get that revisited. So it's gonna be awesome. But right after the whole situation with Amber, we also get another fantastic scene where Mark and Adam Eve are training together or just practicing together for the first time, just flying around and talking, and it's really just very wholesome, enjoyable scene.
Yeah, where she's kind of showing him the ropes. He's still trying to learn to fly like a Foo Fighter song, and it's nice. I like their dynamic. I really like Mark and Eve's friendship.
Yeah, and we realize that it's not all just for naught because she ends up taking him to the headquarters of the teen team.
Yeah, and it's way cooler than in the comic. What was it like? It wasn't like a dumpster. Or what was in the comic? It was kind of a dumpster, wasn't it, or something?
It wasn't in the tower. I think I don't remember, but it wasn't as cool as that. I just remember it being a little bit dull.
Yeah, so this base is obviously a step up. Basically, every facility is a step up. Mark's house is way nicer than the comic. The GDA facility looks way cooler at the Pentagon and stuff. Way nicer. So visually, there's been a lot of improvements.
It's a fantastic introduction into the team. We get to meet Duplicate again, where she formally introduces herself to Mark. We get to meet Rex again for the first time, where he just gets to display more of his douchebaggery, and a robot, makes his formal introduction, asks Mark if he wants to be on the team, and Mark just says he'll think about it, and he leaves to go check on his father.
Yeah, and there's also a scene earlier where we see the scene of the Flaxon attack. Cecil and Robot talk business, and Cecil tells Robot that 338 people died in the attack, and we see how genius Robot is, really. There's no other word for it. And he manages to find out the names of the Flaxons by reverse engineering their language from audio he recorded during the fight, which is really smart.
Yeah, I mean, Robot just being Robot, and he's going to get to do that a lot during the series, so many times, I imagine, even especially in the first few episodes. So right after that, we get Mark just revisiting his dad. His dad wakes up. Actually, his dad's still asleep, but he reassures his mom, Debbie, and then goes on to check on the victim, which is the elderly woman who's, barely alive, but it doesn't seem like she's going to make it.
She's in a coma, and her family doesn't even know what the hell happened because they can't show her family that facility because it's like top secret. So sadly, when we find out when she dies, she just kind of dies alone in a place she has no idea where she is. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, and it shows you some of the realities of someone working with Cecil Stedman and some of the difficult choices that Cecil has to make regarding some of these people's lives. So in this case, yeah, the woman's probably going to die, and her family's never going to really know the real reasons, and she's not going to be able to say goodbye or vice versa.
Yeah, so you can throw closure right out the window for that family.
Yeah, and as we can see, that really doesn't sit well with Mark later on.
One thing we forgot to mention earlier was when they get into the teen team base, Rex immediately kisses Eve, so Mark kind of learns what the dynamics are where they're in a relationship, and that's got to be a buzzkill for Mark, who seemingly had a crush on Eve already.
Mark, although it's not what he wanted, he respects their relationship and decides not to pursue Eve, but later has a conversation with Mark saying, who cares if Eve has William tells Mark, who cares if Eve is a boyfriend, because you should just replace him and be a better boyfriend.
If you're the better guy, they can replace you. That's how this works. Which is pretty intuitive for a 17-year-old, that William.
It's very typical teenage response, you know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of teenagers would do, and it just makes sense, I guess. So yeah, it's a funny response from William. And Mark, although he just brushes it off, doesn't really think about it. And right after Mark leaves, presumably to go tackle the second Flaxon invasion, but we see a brief appearance again from Amber, who basically asks William if he's single or if he's dating Eve. If Mark is single, yeah.
Yeah, William is basically like taking all Mark's appointments and stuff like that, and he does give her the number, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, he just basically lets her know that he's not, and this probably delights Amber. But moving forward, we see we cut to the teen team fighting the Flaxons, and Mark shows up and he sees that it's not going well. There's a lot of duplicates. Duplicates are getting killed. Rex is barely holding his own. Adam Eve is barely holding her own. And it's just not going well. Robot's pinned down. They don't really have any plans, and he just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, the Flaxons seem generic, but earlier Robot reveals by looking at one of their ships that the time structure or the way that time operates at the Flaxon homeworld is way faster than the way that people age on Earth. So, or it's way slower than when people age on Earth. So when they come to Earth, they age super fast, but that means it's a detriment to them, but it's also a benefit where they have so much more time to prepare and increase their tech to come back for other invasions. So it's a double-edged sword that both is the weakness and the strength of the Flaxons.
We see that when they return, they've adapted to this change by creating, those arm wristbands that'll keep them from aging so fast. They're up here, and adapting is the name of the game, adaptability. We see that it's not exactly a similar response from the Guardians or the teen team as they're getting overwhelmed. Like we see the Flaxons use their own kind of mechanical face huggers and, just face hug Adam Eve, who's just pinned down at this point, and it looks like she's about to get killed, and that's where we get a big turn of events with Mark's explosion.
Yeah, and he goes off on them and does what he has to do and just gets super pissed off. Eve almost dies there, and he almost ignores Eve's death when she's like suffocating, and it's like, hey, Mark, come on, you can't let your anger lead to more destruction.
Yeah, and Mark's anger ends up being the key to success, because as he smashes that one Flaxon, he destroys the wristband and realizes that the wristbands are what's controlling or what's enabling them to stay on Earth without dying so fast. So that leads to another magnificent moment from Robot, where he creates a sonic EMP wave at the correct frequency to disrupt and destroy all of their bracelets, and basically effectively ending the invasion.
Yeah, it's a cool reveal. I love that in the comic. I thought it was really clever when you explore the different dynamics of like, hey, otherworldly invasions. You have to think about, okay, they're not going to age the same time. There's not going to be the same gravity. There's all these different factors that often get left by the wayside for, oh, cool alien with big gun. This had a nice little flavor to it.
Yeah, and the next few scenes are pretty brief, and I feel like a lot of this Flaxon stuff really showed you the important parts in the first invasion. So they cut to the scene with Mark, celebrating his victory and returning to the medical facility, and noticing that Omni-Man, his dad Nolan, is he's back up on his feet and he's feeling good, and that's a big relief for Mark, who's just proud of himself in the moment, and he realizes that his father's also proud of him for taking care of Earth while he was injured.
Yeah, it's bittersweet seeing Mark so excited to see his dad and not knowing that at some point he's going to have to learn about what he did to the biggest heroes of the planet. Even if he was mind controlled, that's not a good look and not something you want to see your father doing. And it's a revelation that's going to change Mark's world.
That's something we begin to slowly see being seeded. Right after Nolan's back on his feet, he asks and demands for his costume, and they go home. And once they get home, Nolan's immediate reaction is to continue his training with Mark. And we see that it's getting a bit intense with, when him asking Mark to hit him and, teasing him basically that he can't land a punch. But Mark lands a punch, and then we see Nolan reacting in a pretty volatile manner. But thanks to Cecil and Debbie's interruption, Mark's okay.
We skipped over Damien Darkblood going and talking to Cecil and Donald, and it's one of my favorite lines of the episode where after Damien Darkblood is gone and they're talking, Donald and Cecil, and Cecil asks, "Are you afraid of a demon? I thought you were an atheist." And then Donald goes, "Theoretically." I like that.
Yeah. Donald has a lot of fun scenes like that, so we're gonna Donald's a little treat, a little gem. We're gonna get a lot of interesting scenes like that.
Yeah, he's always a fun character to see.
I'm just trying to cut to the best part, because I'm pretty excited for an arrival that we're gonna get to very shortly, and I think you know that. But yeah, up until this point, all we really get is Mark returning home, settling back in with Debbie. Cecil shows up to let them know that there's someone in space, someone or something they don't recognize.
Yeah, Omni-Man basically says, "Oh, I've dealt with this guy a ton of times. You can handle him, Mark."
Yeah, and this is building, really expanding further back on what we said a few minutes ago, which is Nolan's beginning to train Mark harder and put his faith in him and his trust in him. And this is a chance for Mark to showcase his development as a hero.
Mark asks his dad, "How am I supposed to breathe in space?" And he just goes, "You don't." So it's kind of cool. Viltrumites can hold their breath for a really long time if they don't want to die.
Yeah, it's a really interesting power for Mark, and he wants to, it gives him a chance to explore that further. So, Mark agrees, and we're off to space where we find Alan the alien.
Enter Alan the alien. There's something about the space scenes in the comic and in the show. It's just they really portray it well, where you can see the vastness of it. There's a sense of calmness in the silence of space, and then we see him slowly. We see something flying by really quick, and then we get to see one of the MVPs of the series, Alan the alien.
Oh yeah, I mean Alan's one of my favorite characters. I love Alan. I was very excited to see Alan, being part of the show. I had no idea whether they would put him or not. I'm so glad he is. And I'm very happy that it's played by Seth Rogen. I thought just the way that the scenes with Alan played out, with them like talking, but it felt like they were talking in some sort of chamber because they were in space, using their psychic dialogue. And I just loved it. I thought it was so well done. I thought it was hilarious. It just seemed like trying to talk to Seth Rogen in a hot box. That's just what it felt like to me.
It's basically a podcast.
yeah, exactly. And it was just fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was, it starts out not so friendly with Alan, just challenging Mark, trying to see if he's worthy of protecting Earth.
Yeah, if you ever need a character that can hash things out, you definitely pick Seth Rogen to play that.
Oh yeah, and Seth's fantastic here. He just does his usual stuff. They go into a little battle, and about halfway through, Mark's just like, "Wait, let's just try the diplomatic thing here and just talk." And Seth's just like, "Talk," and then they get to talking, they get to know each other, and yeah, it's just basically the first introduction of Alan and Mark, and it's fantastic because at one point, Alan the alien asked Mark to sit down on a rock with him on the moon, and I believe it was a homage to Dr. Manhattan on Mars because of the way Alan the alien's sitting on the rock and the way they portray the image in the shot. It just looks like that exact scene.
In a series that lives and breathes to respect and do new things with the genre, it definitely is probably a reference to old Dr. Manhattan.
I enjoyed the whole scene with Alan the alien on the moon, but one part I especially enjoyed that I also think does, these little moments, whether it's with the garbage where it slams on him, or even this moment here where as he's leaving the moon, he just, he's in awe at the beauty of Earth from the perspective of space. I just think it just really humanizes him, because even though he's a superhero right now and he's gotten all these superhero powers, he still appreciates these moments.
As they're hashing it out, Alan says that he's working for the Coalition of Planets, and he's here to check out Urath to see if they have what it takes. And then, of course, Mark goes, "Urath, we're on Earth right here." So Alan realizes he made a major mistake, flew to probably the wrong part of the galaxy. And I like that, where Alan can admit when he makes a mistake. He's not that headstrong that he's going like, "What? No, you are Urath. I'm pretty sure you must have named the planet wrong or something."
Yeah, exactly. We get an idea of personality here, and you get to see that he's a bit clumsy. Even though he's really smart, really powerful, he's a bit of a clumsy dude.
Yeah, so after that jaw-dropping scene of Mark looking at planet Earth, Cecil gets to speak to Nolan and talk to him about what happened when the Guardians were massacred. And Nolan gives his side of the story, that he didn't know what happened, that something came and hit them super fast and he doesn't know. And then Cecil has the line of, "That's it. Must have been a pretty tough bastard to take you down." Playing to the ego, knowing that if he did, trying to piss him off and get him to slip up if he did do this.
Yeah, exactly. Cecil's trying to gauge, he's trying to tread lightly, and, he's playing it smart. He's not trying to accuse him of anything, but he's trying to also try to see if Omni-Man slips or whether, he doesn't, have his shit together. So that was very interesting, and it lays the foundation for the next few episodes moving forward, because they do have a very whodunit kind of tone to them.
We cut to a vigil to honor all those who died in the attacks. The last thing you want for a vigil for the Flaxon attack is another portal with more Flaxons coming through, and sadly that's exactly what happens.
It cuts to that, and then right after shows you a scene with Mark in high school, just walking down, very Peter Parker-esque scene,
Mhm.
and he just gets grabbed by Todd, the bully from the first episode, and shoved into the locker again. And Todd's just like, "Here you go," and he hands Mark a piece of paper with a phone number on it, and it's Amber's phone number.
William could have just done this; it would have been just as effective. But I guess this way with Todd, he says, "Yeah, it's like, oh, are you single?" Amber wants to know if you're single, and gives him the number. And then Mark's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he says that Amber's got some pictures of him that she'll delete if he does this. So that's I don't know how Amber got the pictures, but she's clearly an internet sleuth.
You clearly just see how smart Amber is there, and how much ass she's kicking. She got Todd to basically do her dirty work for her, basically reverse toxic masculinity to him. It's pretty satisfying actually. But he uses his own dick pics against him. But yeah,
yeah, that's probably what they are. Actually, I didn't think too much into it, but
yeah,
it's like
this is why you need consent, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, that's Amber's power is weaponizing dick pics. That's
yeah, exactly. And she's not afraid to do it, and I love it. And we realize that Mark is ecstatic because it turns out that Amber is interested in him, and this just makes his day. So he gets a phone call right afterwards from Cecil saying that he needs to get down to the downtown because shit's going down.
Yeah, the Flaxons strike back, and this time they've got some mech suits. Their tech's even more advanced than the second time. And Robot says that their tech is too much and that they should just give up the city. And says to Cecil, "Hey, we might have to do the nuclear." Robot says that the Flaxon tech is too much and they should give up the city. And then he suggests that they ask Cecil to go with the nuclear option, which is, a little jarring. And if that's what Robot's calculations reveal, then that this threat has to be a major one at this point.
It was a pretty extreme reaction, but it gives you an idea of what kind of person Robot is like and where his priorities lie. But yeah, it's quite a shift, and it just seems like our heroes are defeated here. But then obviously you get the return of Omni-Man, who just shows up and just completely decimates the Flaxon invasion.
Yeah, Omni-Man shows up and he unleashes hell on Earth, and he takes the hell right back to the Flaxon homeworld as he flies into the portal. And we get my favorite montage of the 3 episodes so far, and it's like badass, painted in red as Omni-Man just makes sure that the Flaxons don't come back for at least a decade of Earth time.
Oh yeah, and at the same time, right as Mark was going through the portal, right as Omni-Man was going through the portal, Mark yelled out, "Dad!" So now the teen team knows that Omni-Man is Mark's father. So
yeah,
there's that. Yeah.
We get the Omni-Man's your dad from Rex. Rex is the perfect amount of the lovable douchebag of like, oh my god, this guy's so annoying, but you kind of need that upbeat kind of like he adds some fun to these missions.
Yep, you get this amazing montage that Matt brought up earlier, where Omni-Man just destroys the Flaxon homeworld. He returns, and then right after he returns, he go home, and you see it gives you an idea of what the journey was like for Omni-Man, but not necessarily Mark, because time progressed differently. So you see Omni-Man with a full-on beard and scruffy hair and everything, and he just comes back like it's just been another day.
What's cool is like when you see even during the montage, you can see that he has the beard and he's like about to destroy something, and the Flaxons just like open a portal, like, get this guy the hell out of here. Jesus Christ. Like I love that. It shows he's been there for a long time. Like nothing like facial hair storytelling. It's underrated, and you can tell that he's been there for a while, and there's like, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. It shifts to the final scene of the episode where Cecil basically meets with Damien Darkblood again, and he just threatens Damien, telling him that if he doesn't cut his bullshit and stops his random investigations, he's gonna dismiss him and send him back to hell.
Yeah, even if there is, like I was talking about earlier, even if there is an evil Omni-Man, you don't want I'd rather, as much peacetime as I can get at this, if we've got like an omnipotent godlike figure, I'd rather maybe let's keep it under wraps so we can limit the destruction for at least a couple weeks here.
Yeah, exactly. Then the episode ends, and it caps off a fantastic second episode for the show.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with the Flaxon fight sequences, having 3 of them dispersed throughout the episode, and the story bits in between made for an episode that left you wanting more. You're never bored.
Yeah, exactly. Right after I watched this episode, I immediately watched the next one because I just wanted more.
Yeah, exactly. This once the season's done, it's a show that you can easily binge on a weekend, and you're going to want to. 'Cause just like the comic, they're definitely translating the bingeability factor. We cut to episode 3. Who you calling ugly?
Episode 3 is another fantastic episode, and this episode was a lot heavier on the
Drama.
Yeah, the drama.
Yeah, we open up on a superhero funeral, and everyone's gathering. We see Saitama or Saitama. How do you pronounce that One Punch Man's name there? I'm not a One Punch.
Saitama.
Saitama, yeah, we see him. It's not supposed to be him, but I'm pretty sure Kirkman said in an interview that's like, oh no, that's Two Punch Man. Kirkman says with the tongue in cheek there, which is nice. I didn't notice it until I went on Reddit, but it's hard to miss now. And he even auditions for the Guardians of the Globe later on.
Yeah, it was a fantastic homage to an amazing series, and I'm actually glad they did it. It just makes me happy. I'm a big fan of One Punch Man, but yeah, we just get the classic, opening speech from Omni-Man doing the funeral speech. It's a bit somber, and it transitions into the rainy scene with Omni-Man.
For the real funeral, quote unquote.
Yeah, the real fake funeral, where we see Olga, who is the significant other of Red. Is it Red Rush?
Yeah, Red Rush.
Yeah, of Red Rush, and she's just distraught because she believes that there's something going on that they're not telling her, and she's right.
Just that insult to injury, Omni-Man, the guy responsible for this, speaks of not just one funeral, but both the public and the personal funeral. So, that wound, when people find out what happened, that's going to be torn right open. That's even worse.
It's it's just very typical and evil, but it just gives you an idea of what kind of person Omni-Man is like. It gives you an insight of where his priorities might lie, but it's also setting you up for something later down the line.
Yeah, and we see in many superhero comics and stories that superheroes live double lives, and Omni-Man clearly really excels in that factor where he can live not just the home life and the superhero life, but a third life where he can carry out his own objectives, and no one is none the wiser except for Damien Darkblood.
That's the final takeaway from the scene, is that nobody really knows Omni-Man's responsible. And right after that scene, we're still at the funeral, at the rainy funeral, and we see Cecil approach Robot and basically offer him a position as the head of the new Guardian of the Globe squad because he needs a new roster. And Robot's excited.
This is a big step for Robot, and he asked, wouldn't you get Omni-Man to do this? And he's never really been associated with the Guardians of the Globe. I mean, he has been, but he hasn't been an official member. So, and I forget, what's Cecil's reasoning for not wanting Omni-Man to do it?
To do what?
To carry on the task, to be the leader and recruit the new Guardians.
I have no idea.
I'll just cut that.
Probably Omni-Man didn't want it, I think. I think they asked him, but he didn't want it. If not.
Yeah. So, Robot has new tasks to lead the Guardians, and it's a logical choice. He gets Spock, Zachary Quinto, to do it. No, but beyond that, he seems like he'd be the best one to evaluate potential Guardians of the Globe members, and he's a robot, so he's not going to let his emotions get in the way.
Oh, yeah. And so, Robot's the new head of the Guardians of the Globe, and we got back to the Grayson household where Debbie is just distraught about the whole, what's happened the last few days, and Omni-Man, is acting very regular, almost too normal, and she begins to notice that there's something a bit off with the way he's been behaving. So that's where the seed, is first planted.
He's talking about getting pizza from Italy and bringing it home when the cheese is still bubbling, and that's not the behavior of someone that just lost all their friends.
Yeah, especially like someone who's been part of that crime scene, who supposedly almost, lost their own life or was, was hurt.
Yeah, it shows how cold he can be when this is the situation. Even Mark is, completely rattled, where they're like, "Oh, why don't you go to the comic book store with William or whatever?" And he's like, "With this going on, there'd be people, there'd be like a vigil at the comic book store if there's real life superheroes and stuff like that, and everyone got wiped out. There'd be the comic books would be at half mast or something."
Yeah, and this is where we notice that there's a house across the street from the Graysons with a team from Cecil's, a team of Cecil's men, and Donald himself is there, and they're just monitoring the Graysons and making sure that they're not doing anything unusual, including Mark himself.
At the funeral, we forgot to mention at the funeral too. I wanted to say that it's kind of funny that it adds another layer to the comic book universe where they have to have these personal funeral ceremonies because people would dig up the bodies, a la WandaVision or both cuts of Justice League.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, hint, hint. But yeah, now we get to the and it makes even more sense after you see the government just literally across the street from them, monitoring and watching them.
Omni-Man, Damien Darkblood even confronts Omni-Man at the funeral, and he's not too keen on that, of course. So that doesn't go well for old Damien Darkblood. Gets a couple threats for his troubles, and Omni-Man must know that things are tightening in around him.
And the next scene is really one that changes and shifts the emotions of the episode, the tone of the episode, and transitions more towards the positive side of Mark's love life, where we see that he calls Amber and basically just sluggishly asks her out.
Yeah, it's awkward. Mark, of course, is awkward. Like a lot of teenagers, when you're dating somebody and stuff like that, you get nervous and it's already an awkward time. They portray this well, where he's trying not to slip up, and Amber plays it cool. Amber, I think it's this part where he's trying to ask her out. He screws it up, and she's like, "Oh, let's start over. What is it, handsome Mark Grayson?" Like she's doing her best to help him out.
He's happy to see that it works and that he's got himself a date, but in the same few minutes, there's another scene which juxtaposes this one, where we see Eve heading back to headquarters and looking for her boyfriend Rex.
Yeah, this is where we find out that Rex, is truly a teenage dirtbag, and I thought the way they did this was really, really clever. Where Kate walks out of the shower, she's got a towel on. She has like this little tick there, and it's obviously her. She's still feeling whatever Rex is doing in the other room. I thought that was a nice touch. So Eve goes into the shower and sees that Rex is with not just one, not just two, but presumably at least three Kates.
It's really shitty, but at the same time, he doesn't even attempt to take responsibility. He just shifts the blame on her by saying that he thought she was with Invincible.
It's not a good look for Duplicate either, who, she could feel alone on this. There's not that many people that she can relate to, and obviously not a good look for her, but this superhero thing, there's only so many people that can relate to it. This is kind of fully on Rex, even though, not good for Kate.
We cut to the next scene, which is one of my favorites from the episode, where Robot is basically holding tryouts for the next team.
Yeah, I think this is the most fun part of the episode by far. Just one thing I wanted to mention earlier was what Omni-Man says to Mark after the funeral at home. He says that you can't bring the superhero stuff home with you, even the victories. You can't bring them home.
Oh, yeah.
And this is my favorite line of the episode, too, where Mark leaves the room, and then Debbie and Nolan get into it, and they're talking about how, that could happen to you. I mean, look, I could end up like Olga. It really affected her. You can get killed like Red Rush. And then Omni-Man says, he can run fast, okay? It's not one of your premier superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. Which gives you an idea that, he's not really affected by the whole death. It's not a good look for him.
No, it's a cold, calculating way. Like, look, he's got a shitty power set anyways. I wouldn't have died here.
Yeah. Yeah, which shows that he really doesn't think of them as friends or anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very cold way to talk about somebody that just died. He was in a coma, so basically it was like 2 days ago for him, or yesterday in his mental state.
And then we get to the tryouts, and we get to meet some new, people who are about to join the team. Lots of new characters, including Two Punch Man, who's there, and it looks amazing as always.
Yeah, and even Burley in the background, it kind of looks like Kirkman. I don't know if that's intentional, but I thought of Kirkman when they showed the big lumberjack dude. He's got the beard.
Afterwards, we're introduced to one of my favorite characters, Monster Girl, where she, shows Rex who's who.
Monster Girl gives 0 Fs. She just roasts the shit at him. You can see that she's really angry, and she doesn't need to go full Hulk to turn into Monster Girl. I think she can control it. It's more of a choice, but she's angry because as she says to Robot later on, that she's a 24-year-old who gets younger every time she uses her powers.
Yep, she makes fun of Rex, beats him up, tells him he has a tiny dick, and just shows him who's who. And it's it's a satisfying scene both for the viewers and for Adam Eve, who's there just watching and decides not to really do anything.
Yeah, she mentally and physically just destroys him. He gets dumped earlier. Well, doesn't get officially dumped, but his relationship is clearly on the rocks, and then he's in a bad state, and then he gets beat up by a what looks to be a little girl at first. Yeah,
there's some just general trivia from the Amazon app is just saying that the character Adam Eve fights, named the Hunk, is actually unique to the television series.
Oh yeah. He definitely didn't look like someone from the comics. One thing I wanted to mention here is Adam Eve's symbol is a little different. In the comic, it looks like the nuclear, like the rotating neutrons or whatever. I'm not a science guy, but here it's just kind of like a cross. It's could use a little touch up.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one of my only complaints about the visual designs. I like during the fun montage where you show all the heroes facing off. There's Shrinking Ray fighting against the guy in the gorilla suit, who I think might be an analog for the elephant guy that we see in the comic who's making fun of Rhino.
Oh yeah.
Or if we do see him, I'd love to see him because I think a guy in an elephant suit is really funny.
Yeah, I really hope we see him. He's one of the best parts of the comic, to be honest.
Yeah, and when Shrinking Ray goes in the ear, I love that the song fit perfectly where it said, still here, still in your ear. And then she's like, still here like you can't see me. And then I'm in your ear, like, perfect song choice. And, she makes short work of the gorilla guy. You can see why Shrinking Ray is on the roster.
Yep, and so we just get to see a few more scenes with the team interacting. We get, a scene at the end of the tryouts where Robot announces who's part of the team. Rexplode, Black Samson, Shrinking Girl.
Yeah, Shrinking Ray's on the team. Yeah, Monster Girl. She knocked out some of Rex's teeth in that fight. I wonder if that's going to stick around, if we're going to see him missing those teeth later on.
Oh, yeah.
We get the full team. It's Black Samson, Shrinking Ray, Monster Girl, Duplicate, and Rexplode. And obviously Eve is pissed off about this, where, even if he was aware, even if Robot was aware of the happenings, I don't think that he functions in that way. He doesn't really care about, human relationship drama. And he just put this terrible, trifecta on the same team of Eve, Duplicate, and Rex. And I just realized we have 2 love triangles now, and then 3 episodes in.
Yep. And this is, the part where right after the team is announced, Monster Girl talks to Robot
for the first time about her condition, and we see, a little bit of human development from both characters, which will, is also foreshadowing for their own, story arcs later down the line. But we also see Omni-Man up in the back watching them, and just it gives you the explanation for why he doesn't want to lead the team, because basically he thinks it's ridiculous of some of the drama that they deal with on the team, as well as the fact that there's children on the team. So he just dismisses it all as being beneath him.
Yeah, it's like the Seymour Skinner pathetic meme. I've already seen that around. It's great. He literally just goes pathetic.
Yeah, yep.
It's great, and he's thinking like, I just killed these guys. I don't want to have to kill teenagers now too. Probably
a funny explanation for. It makes sense for his character. It falls in line with everything we've seen in the show so far.
Even Mark fly off, and she tells Mark about the recent Rexploits and what he's done. And Mark was right to think that Rex was kind of a douche.
Everyone thinks Rex is a douche.
Yeah, but Eve says that Rex wasn't always an asshole. And that made me think, like, I hope we get an origin episode for Cecil and Rex and Eve, because I think they would add some layers to old Rexy there.
I'm certain we are going to get an origin episode for Rex. It's almost necessary for his story arc.
The New Guardians are talking, and Rex gets on Black Samson's nerve. And it's so nice to hear Kari Payton get to be super threatening, and it's a little frightening there with the way he talks to Rex.
Yeah, I was hoping he would beat him up again too, but we couldn't have that twice in one episode, could we?
Yeah, and I noticed that, Black Samson says, like, he says that he wants like a leader that he can look in the eyes and stuff like that about Robot. Then Rex says that his suit's powered by battery, so they both kind of have a mechanical aspect to it too. So maybe that's a little of why Black Samson gets a little pissy about it.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, going to scene with the study session is actually quite interesting because William just tosses out a bunch of Mark stuff and puts a bunch of stuff that he thinks you want to see in there, including a book by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which is, a nice touch because he's also a writer for Marvel.
Yeah, it's basically Queer for the Straight Guy right here, where they get him set up like, okay, here's some literature, here's the culture aspect, and, you do that. So it was great. I like that. I watched a lot of that show back in the day, so it was nice to see, William's a good friend for Mark. He's hooking him up. It's definitely more of a one-way friendship there.
Oh, yeah, and Mark helps him, or William helps him out big time because after Amber shows up, she sees a bunch of his comic books and realizes that maybe this isn't all his stuff, like the stuff that William brought over, but appreciates the effort and even asked Mark for one of his comic books to read.
Yeah, so that's a keeper. If she reads your comics, she's definitely worth a shot. So she borrows Science Dog, and it's cool because I noticed they're probably trade paperbacks. It's not just like one issue. It looks like it's like a volume of it, which is cool.
Oh yeah, it also shows you some foreshadowing of what their relationship might be in the future, because it just shows Mark dealing with the hectic superhero life while Amber's over. So much so that even while she's in the bathroom, we have Cecil like appear in his bedroom.
Yeah, Cecil Mark gets a call and he turns off the phone, and then Cecil's like, all right, that's it. And Cecil's not one person you can ignore, and he teleports in, basically tells Mark about this mission and says, like, come on, get out here. And says, come on, you've got a mission. We need your help with Mount Rushmore. It was in Mark, this is where you get the Spider-Man conflict of like living the double life and the impact it has on you. And Mark doesn't want to leave Amber high and dry here.
Mark is, overwhelmed in the moment, but he makes the right choice and decides to obviously go save the day. But it also gives him an idea of what it's going to be like to be a superhero and how he's sometimes going to have to disappoint Amber.
Yeah, I love it when Mark doesn't know where the Mount Rushmore is. He's like, well, what state is that again? And Cecil's like, what are the teaching in school these days?
Yeah, it was a pretty funny scene. And right after that, they show that, like Eve knows where Mount Rushmore is, but, Mark doesn't, which is pretty funny as well.
Yeah,
So-
as somebody who's not the best with geography, I can relate to that for Mark Grayson getting geography shamed here. And so they fly to Mount Rushmore, and we get Doc Seismic. So I thought this was nice to see him so early. Doc Seismic, we were talking last week if he's, if he's Mark's, arch nemesis. And I think it's actually IGN with their shady reviews.
Screw IGN and their stupid review, but I thought Doc Seismic was a fantastic addition to this episode. I thought his introduction was just damn awesome. Mark just rescuing Mark rescuing a family from, just
Honest
the ground.
Abe killing them.
Yeah, exactly. And just the ground shattering in two, and you got literally just Adam Eve flying around and saving Boy Scouts and whatnot. Like it was just a great sequence, and you get to really see their dynamic together, Mark and Eve. You get to see them improving as a pair and working together really well, while also dealing with someone who's gonna be hopefully a regular foe of Mark's and not just a one-time thing.
Yeah, because there's a bit you can do with Doc Seismic. He's very reminiscent of the Mole Man in Fantastic Four, who is one of their first villains. Their very first villain, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, it's just a great scene. It shows you that although it's just an old guy, like Doc Seismic, he really does a lot of damage. They had to deal with the mountain splitting in two. There's a bunch of lava. They had to save a bunch of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a new dynamic to his character where he's like basically he's like an extremist. He's like, he's almost like a radical feminist there. He's talking about what Adam Eve is wearing. She's like, I made this costume myself. So it's definitely a new dynamic to the character, and it's a parody of people that get a little too much into that stuff and get a little preachy as you're causing destruction and you don't really acknowledge the own harm you're doing when you look at the stuff that others have done in the past.
Yeah, there's some funny moments and some really, funny lines, and what we see, and then we see Mark rushing home. And he's in a hurry because he realizes that he's just left Amber hanging on the spot.
And I noticed one thing. This is two villains back to back that have had bracelets be a major factor in the fight with the Flaxons and Doc Seismic. So go for the bracelets, folks.
Yeah, the bracelets are the weak spot. But yeah, we get home and Amber is just there reading the comic book, and she's pretty pissed off. She had to wait an hour for Mark while he was gone.
Yeah, that kind of kills the mood when someone leaves the date for an hour.
Oh yeah, and this just makes it seem like he forgot about her, but he just tells her that he had to do something important, and for whatever reason, she decides that he's, charming enough to warrant a second date.
Before he even gets to talk to Amber, he's running home and he's in the house in the costume, and he runs into Omni-Man, and they have a little chat about the double life thing. And says, "Hey son, just to remind one last thing, you might want to take your costume off."
Oh yeah, it's pretty funny. Right after the whole Mark getting a second date, we cut to a little scene with Donald where he's doing cleanup for Cecil in front of a big kaiju-looking monster, and it stirs for a second and freaks him out. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I love it. And any time for a kaiju reference is always good. I know we're gonna watch Godzilla vs. Kong after this, so I'm all in on the kaiju of it all. And I like this line from Cecil when they're looking at it. He says, "Put it on ice. You never know when it might come in handy," which is definitely some foreshadowing. Cecil loves to put things on ice, whether they should be on ice or not. We see Nolan brings home a part of that kaiju for supper as he has some nice banter. We get some nice banter from the horniest parents in comics.
Yeah, and then we get a little reminiscent, touching scene from Eve where she's back at the headquarters and she's just taking down all the photos of her and Rex from the board.
Yeah, I love this moment where, she's having her reminiscing moment where she's remembering the good times with Rex because, they've known each other for quite a bit of time. And then you see some explosions in the background. She doesn't know they're explosions until she gets a little closer and you see some nice fireworks. That's probably, on top of being, in good shape there and stuff like that. Rex, I mean, that's got to be a win with the ladies when you just make fireworks wherever you want.
Oh yeah, that's gotta be something they would love. Whether guys, girls, whoever, just people. I bet that whoever loves fireworks.
Who doesn't like fireworks? Just dogs. Seance dog, probably not a fan, but
pretty cool way to use his powers, and they share a tender little moment. And I'm really glad that Adam Eve reacted the way she did, because a lot of times they show these scenes where it's like one of the parties has been mistreated and they often just get back together. It's pretty toxic, but in this case I like how Eve puts her foot down and she's just like, nah, you cheated, you fucked up, it's over.
Women tend to mature faster than men, and Eve is really mature for a 17-year-old in this, and even with helping Mark and stuff like this, and she puts down Rex easy and tells him that they're over, and you feel kind of bad for Rex even though he's like kind of a dickhead.
In the next scene we're gonna see poor Eve's fortunes take a turn again in terms of her relationship aspects, because she's going to fly over to Mark having fully realized what she wants. Once she goes to Mark's, she's at the window hovering and she finds Mark, getting it on with Amber, and they're just making out, and she realizes that she missed her moment. She's a little bit hurt and decides to fly off.
Yeah, so now they're like, I would say they're like two ships crossing the night, but they're more like, like a jet plane and a ship crossing the night, where they're just going in completely different trajectories, where, Mark sees her kissing a guy, like, oh, okay, I guess that's not going to happen. And then she sees Mark with Amber, and you see that they both care about each other. It's just not, the timing is just not there.
No, and it's, it's like a typical high school kind of stuff, and it's exciting because it sets up more moving forward down the line. And then we get to the next scene, which is another one of my favorite scenes in this episode, where we're at the high, maximum security prison for those alien beings that they have in the show. Like, a lot of the villains, like including the Mahler twins.
Yeah, we see a nice little hallway with aliens and superpowered people alike, as one of the guards is rolling a cart with the food there. We see an alligator there that's got to be a member of the Lizard League. They're coming soon. They got to be. And we see an Asian gentleman who seems to be able to multiply himself. I wonder if that's going to go anywhere in the future.
Isn't that Dupla Paul or whatever?
Yeah, it's multi-Paul. I don't want to spoil stuff for people, but yeah, you get that pun name, multiple, just a taste. And I bet he's related to one of the characters we've seen. 5 guesses, which one?
Oh yeah, we noticed that as the guard is giving out the chicken pot pie that all the inmates are so excited to have, when he gets to the door for one of the twins, and I'm assuming it's the original twin, but at this point we'll never really know. He notices that the shaft for the person to slide the food through the door is open and it won't close. So the Mahler takes advantage of the moment and just takes the guard out and manages to free himself and his twin.
Yeah, we see a shadowy figure press the buttons and that door opens, and in like a sloppy moment, it reminds me of those Family Guy moments where they like fling a frog at the wall and it slowly falls down, where he's trying to get the hand on the receiver there, the register, the handprint. I like that. And then he gets out, and then you see the other Mahler twin, like the more gleeful one, just like enjoying his chicken pot pie, not concerned with anything. And then it's like, oh, freedom. So he gets both the chicken pot pie and the freedom. But unfortunately, his luck runs out when he's the one that's killed at the end of it. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Oh yeah, and you get this awesome scene with this awesome Run the Jewels
and Danger Mouse.
Yeah, Danger Mouse song in the background. Danger Mouse, so that featuring Big Boy and Run the Jewels. It's called Chase Me. And it's funny because they're chasing the twins, and it's a fantastic scene where they just break out of the security prison. They get some help from the mysterious benefactor that Matt mentioned, who we'll find out later on. And they break out. It's a pretty awesome scene. They're just blocking shots with scraps of metal. They get out. They find this, big, like, crazy strong. Yeah, turret in the desert.
Yeah, the big turret.
Just shooting at them. And, I knew this scene was coming. I'm pretty sure all readers of the series knew the scene was coming, but in typical Mauler fashion, we just get the one who believes himself to be the superior one grabbing the other twin and just using him for whatever means
Gears of War,
necessary.
meat shield style.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was just it was just a fantastic, satisfying scene. But you just knew it was coming because this is what the Maulers do.
I'm devastated about that one Mauler twin. That's worse than all the Guardians for me. I'm devastated. No vigil for him, sadly.
Yeah, now poor guy just got taken out, used his literal bait and shield, and now he's gone. But yeah, it was quite a way to end an episode, eh?
Yeah, but not just that. We see the orange drone, and then it's revealed that Robot was the one that let him go, and he's talking to Cecil. So definitely, Robot's not all he's cracked up to be.
And then we got the credits roll, but with Invincible, things aren't always as they seem, because right after the credits, it cuts to a dark scene in the house, the Grayson household, where we see Debbie using her computer, and she's greeted by a visitor unsuspectingly.
Yeah, Quadruple D is back again, and he has some probing questions about the Guardians, and he says stuff like, "Oh, he didn't even try to console you, or whatever. He didn't even try to convince you." And Omni-Man appears, and it looks like Damien can kind of like stop time momentarily because he's vanished by the time that Omni-Man comes up and talks to Debbie.
Yep, he's gone, and this is where we begin to see that both characters suspect something. Both Debbie has had a seed of doubt planted into her mind, and Omni-Man is also beginning to doubt the authenticity of his wife's reactions because he thinks something might be up.
The Grayson family dynamic is definitely in jeopardy right now with the seeds being planted, and who knows, with this reveal could definitely tear the family apart.
Yeah, and it really gives you an idea of where the show's going to go moving forward, because it's going to build up the tension between, mother, son, and father, and whether each reveals or finds out the secrets that the other one's hiding.
Yeah, so I really like that. Also, with the hint of Robot not being the most heroic person, I want to give props to Corey Walker, because that design for Robot's face, I mean, a lot of robots, you don't know what they're thinking. It's not like their faces move too much, but there's something about the way the faces, the eyes, the mouth, that it's like a Rorschach test where you never know what's happening, and you get different vibes from it depending on what you're thinking.
Yeah, Robot's incredibly well designed. I find his character to be very compelling, and I'm really excited for people to see what happens with all of them moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to go into the spoiler section. So before we do, I just want to say, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you hated what you heard, tell an enemy, and they'll definitely get back at them. You can find our episodes on Podbean and Spotify, and we'll be on Apple Podcasts and YouTube pretty soon too. Follow us on Twitter for the latest updates at Chilltrumites. And if you want the memes and foolishness, go on our Instagram at the Chilltrumites for some memes and other shenanigans.
Yeah, come check it out. We're always down for having some fun.
Yeah, and we're always excited to hear your feedback. So, tweet at us with what you liked about the episode, or some constructive criticism is always good. We're just starting out the podcast, and things are definitely subject to change.
Yeah, or just send us your best impression of Alan the Alien. Those are appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. So from Pumbaa to Alan the Alien, god damn, that's a historic career for Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Seth's been killing it. I'm genuinely one thing that I can't wrap my head around is how good the casting for the show is. For all the voice actors, and how much of an amazing performance they've all been giving, and that's one thing I'm excited moving forward is that, although we've seen so many characters and there's so much talent there, there's still quite a few characters we haven't seen, including ones that have already been casted and ones that have not, like Throg and a lot of other characters like Kid Omni-Man. Once we see this, I wonder who's going to voice them and how exciting that's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to head into the spoiler section, guys. So non-spoiler listeners, thanks for listening. And I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to have a spoiler drop that I'll drop over this. But yeah, just going to talk about some spoilery stuff. I really like that. I mentioned this to you off air, but I like that Immortal's first mission with the Guardians is is protecting the White House, so where he used to rule there as he was Abe Lincoln, which is a nice touch.
Oh yeah, and fans of if we have any fans of Immortal out there right now, but like for ones who are clearly just watchers of the show, there's gonna be so much more Immortal, and he's gonna be around for a while. And he's a great character.
Being
so
around
just
for a
sit
while
back.
is kind of what he does. That's his bread and butter.
Oh yeah, that's literally his superpower.
I'm interested to see, like, even I mentioned I love Robot's design so much in the comic. At first, I didn't like it because I was like, it kind of seems like tacky or kind of like cheap, but it's fantastic, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And same, like Immortal kind of seems generic, but when you realize, that he's, Abe Lincoln, you're like, oh shit, there's a reason for the look, and he's great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Robot. I like his designs, and the thing is, I don't really consider this a spoiler, but I guess I'll put the spoiler warning out there. Is Robot is the kind of character that, as we've seen already, he knows how to play with toys, and he has a lot of gizmos and tech, and he's gonna find new and creative ways to express himself in terms of how he appears. And in terms of the technology that he's gonna use. So just stay put, stay put for that. Yeah, stay tuned. It's gonna be amazing. He's gonna come and he's gonna have quite a few devices. He's gonna have quite a few iterations, and
I can't wait for the mech suits. It's like Iron Man with the Mark 50 and the Mark whatever. Like, I can't wait to see what different designs he has for the comic. Give him a freaking Hulkbuster suit or something.
Oh yeah, me too. They showed that one scene earlier in the episode, in episode 2, where we have the Flaxons just show up at the beginning, and they're just, a lot of them are just wearing regular armor or suits or whatever, and then one of the Flaxons adapted and came back in like a mecha suit, and I'd love to see Robot do the same.
Yeah, an even bigger one just to kick the crap out of them. I can't wait for that whole storyline. It's cool to see Monster Girl and Robot interact, knowing where they end up and how they completely change. Well, not completely, but like they changed a lot over the storyline. Robot especially. Monster Girl kind of just like it's not a change. It's so much as a return to form when she actually becomes the age that she's supposed to be.
Monster Girl is gonna be one of those characters where it's like she's so interesting, and I can't wait for fans to see more of her moving forward, because they like she is. I don't know. She's one of the most interesting characters in the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, at first you think, what is it? Just like a Hulk knockoff, but she's awesome. It's like Hit Girl that can transform into basically someone that can really beat your ass.
Yeah, and I like that there's a lot of gray personalities in this show. Like, not everyone is the same. Like, when you're reading like Justice League or when you're reading the Avengers, everyone has largely similar sentiments on like good and evil. But you'll see here that even a lot of the heroes who are on the good guys side, whether it's the Teen Team or a future Guardians of the Globe team or whatever, they all have different ideas of what justice is and how to go about like bringing it.
Yeah, when I heard Monster Girl's voice the first time, I thought it was Tara Strong, but it's not. It's a voice actor. Her name is Gray Delisle Griffin. I don't want to mispronounce that, but she did a killer job, and I think she brings that perfect amount of snark to Monster Girl.
I think she was fantastic, and I can't wait to see more of her. I mean, Monster Girl is one of those characters I was always excited to read more of in the series, and I'm always excited to see more of her in the TV show as well.
I think that these first 3 episodes really set the road. Things escalated quickly. No, they really set the scene and set us up for a bright future. And what's cool is Kirkman he knows all the storylines. It's all there, so he can kind of position this in the perfect way. Because when he was writing the story, I don't think he had everything planned out. So now that he knows how the story went, he can kind of move things forward. Like he said in an IGN interview, that he's going to put some twists a little earlier and kind of move them around and do a little bit of remix to adapt it to television and give readers or give viewers a better experience.
I think that's one of the things that the pacing of the show is handled very well. It's slightly different than the comic book series pacing, but it's handled equally as well, and it's a really a joy to watch.
Yeah, definitely. This episode's going to be a bit late. It's going to be out after episode 4 is out, but in my podcasting career, I've only ever done like hour episodes at a time, maybe like a 2-hour finale, but 3 at the beginning when I've been out of the game for 2 years is quite a bit. So the rest of the episodes will be coming out way faster. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, anything else?
No, I think it was really good.
All right, great. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks, Bash, of course, for the insight on all these characters.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, of course. And remember, don't cheat on people, especially those that can transform your toilet paper into sandpaper in an instant, even after you're already shitting blood from a monster girl attack.
Yeah, and don't cheat on people or, shit talk people who you've sent dick pics to and have your dick pics held for hostage,
Exactly. Yeah. Catch you next time, guys.